I want to start this episode off by setting the tone of everything we're going to talk about here today. It's going to be a long one.
Yeah.
So strap in. We have a lot to talk about. Maybe pound for pound, the worst week, at least for domestic politics, of the year so far.
Absolutely. I'm putting this far above. It's like what Millennia is to the rest of the Elden Ring bosses. And in
It was
terms of
bad
weeks this year.
and we did not win. We did 100 tries and we lost every single time.
I was about to say we have. I don't think we won once this week.
Yeah, Jamal Bowman, the abysmal debate, Supreme Court decisions,
Every single one of them being wrong and the most bad this term.
And look, we got more to come even next week, but I want to start off by setting the tone for this episode, and I want to do that by reading a message.
Yeah.
I want to read to you all an email from the Biden-Harris campaign team that was sent to supporters yesterday following the really bad debate performance.
Nice.
So this was an email that was sent out. We didn't get it, but I screenshotted it from Twitter. It says, quote, "If you're like me, you're getting lots of texts or calls from folks about the state of the race after Thursday. Maybe it was your panicked aunt, your MAGA uncle, or some self-important podcasters."
Hell
a jab
yeah,
at the Pod Save America guys, I guess.
It's got to be.
I like
not
to think
us.
it's a jab at us.
Well, it is a jab at us because everybody listens. They're in tap with us.
Yeah.
But most likely, it's the Pod Johns.
Continuing on, it's a tough position to be in, so it might be helpful to send you a few responses. Now, this is a list of like seven different potential responses, but I want to read number 6 specifically. I think it sort of encapsulates how the liberals are looking at all of us uppity leftists right now.
Yeah.
Number 6 is, the bedwetting brigade is calling for Joe Biden to, quote, drop out. That is the best possible way for Donald Trump to win and for us to lose. First of all, Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee, period, end of story. Voters voted. He won overwhelmingly. And if he were to drop out, it would lead to weeks of chaos, internal food fighting, and a bunch of candidates who limp into a brutal floor at the convention, all while Donald Trump has time to speak to the American voters uncontested. All of that would be in service of a nominee who would go into a general election in the weakest possible position with $0 in their bank account. You want a highway to losing? It's that. At the end of the day, we'd switch to candidates who would, according to the polls, be less likely to win than Joe Biden, the only person to ever defeat Donald Trump.
According to what polls? Like, what?
They did one poll, which I think it's already telling that they polled other potential candidates in a head-on-head with Donald Trump. They did a poll where I think Biden and Harris, both of them were at like 45 or 46.
Yeah.
And then they had like Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, and a couple of others that were like trailing behind a little bit more, like 43, 42. The disparity was not large.
Yeah,
Keep in
I'm
mind.
going to say these are very margin of error, damn near.
But yeah, it's just the most condescending message they could have sent out after, calling everybody that's like questioning Joe Biden's candidacy right now a bedwetter. Are you serious?
That's absolutely insane.
Look, you know, maybe we are wet in the bed, but you're shitting it, brother. You're about to shit the bed.
You're a child.
Yes.
I can't fathom that those self-important podcasters, and that's how you know that it's directed at like liberals. It's directed at the pod jobs because they just said radio hosts or something along the lines if they're talking about the conservative guys. But no, it's the podcasters, liberal medium. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's because the Pod Save guys finally for one moment stopped meat riding Joe Biden
first time.
and said maybe we should have a conversation about replacing this guy if this is what the performance is going to be. Completely mild take after the debate performance that Joe Biden just offered all of us. But holy shit, like this is the reason that we could lose to Donald Trump, because the Democratic Party is so averse to change.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's the same reason why we got in this position in the first place. Because like, well, Joe Biden, he was there with Obama. He was there with Obama. Maybe we could just run him instead of somebody like Bernie that people like.
And Bernie, by the way, can still deliver a coherent message
all the time. He does,
which is how you win elections
after the hours of 4 p.m.
Yeah, and we'll get into this later on in the episode. But every single liberal defending Joe Biden's performance has been saying, "Well, look at his record."
Yeah.
But the issue is, a debate isn't about his record. An election isn't about your record.
Exactly.
An election is not about truth. Who cares about truth when you're running for president of the United States? Trump didn't win in 2016 because he told the truth. An election is about selling a compelling message to the American electorate. And if you can't do that, which it seems like Biden can't do, you can't win.
Yeah.
And this isn't me saying that Joe Biden's going to lose if it seems like he's still going to be the guy. I'm not saying he's going to lose if he's the guy. But you got to be able to sell a message. He's certainly not doing us any favors with that performance.
I'm not saying he's going to lose, but I will say I was maybe a solid like 53-47, and now I'm maybe more a 49-51.
Yeah,
you know.
It's definitely, it didn't do him any favors, and that's sort of the the tone for this episode because it really is all the DNC's fault.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, Trump is like a threat. The conservatives are a threat. We wouldn't be in this position if they weren't so terrible, clearly. But the second worst threat is the DNC, who's going to stop us from actually beating them.
As soon as we chose to run Hillary, things went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way,
welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. I hope you're ready for a loaded episode because, boy, lots of news. We got to talk about the debate, of course.
Yes.
Joe Biden did not do very well.
No.
But we'll talk about Trump and RFK, who sat in the cuck chair and LARPed that he was actually at the debate. And then we got to talk about what actually matters.
Yeah,
the actual society-ending decisions that we got from the Supreme Court.
It's pretty good. We may have one of, if not the most impactful Supreme Court decision came down on Friday, impactful in modern American history.
Yeah, it's really bad. But,
so that's interesting.
Before we get into this episode, I'll remind you all that we have a new merch line out.
Yes, we do.
It's got our new logo on it. It's got all kinds of different cool designs. Our designers cooked. Graphic design department.
Absolutely on fire with this one.
They deserve a raise.
I'm saying.
Well,
do they though?
But check out headintheoffice.com to look at all of our merch. And if you weren't able to come out to the live stream, first of all, thank you to everyone who was there.
Yes.
But if you couldn't come out, you can still donate through Hiddo to PCRF by purchasing any of the 2 magnets that we have for sale. All the proceeds from those sales will go directly to PCRF through Head in the Office. And again, thanks for everyone who came out and donated. We raised more than $3,000.
Pretty insane for some little guys like us.
Well, little tiny guys, little insignificant,
not self-important podcasters.
Nobody listens to them. Who are they?
I'm saying I don't even know.
But if you want to support the show another way, head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, get early access to all of our content. Hiddo postcard program starting soon. Mm-hmm. You know, we had to wrap up debate coverage.
That's pretty good.
But we'll be working on that this week.
We'll send those out soon. We got to get our promised benefits out there.
Yeah, and also if you are an angel investor and you've sent us your address, those mugs will be sent out this week.
Oh,
hopefully arriving by the end of the week. And if you're an angel investor who hasn't sent us your information yet, do so. Still get in on getting a mug.
Exactly.
Got to be an angel investor, though. $25 tier.
You don't want to miss that opportunity.
You don't.
You do not want to miss that opportunity.
Another thing you can do to support the show is leave a 5-star review on Apple. Mm-hmm. We got 2 today.
Yes, we do. This first one.
Oof.
These fellas changed my life by Nico Smith 10. Finding this podcast has single-handedly changed my political thinking.
Wow.
I was caught in the neo-lib echo chamber for a very long time growing up in Denver, but finding y'all's TikTok has shown me a whole new side of politics that I didn't know much about. I've been inspired to do much more research and build my own opinions on things that just happen to match with you guys. I guess you guys are just always right, keep spitting facts, and that massive cosign.
And look, it just happens to match with what we said.
Exactly. Oh my God, you independently assessed the facts and then came to the correct conclusion, and that correct conclusion happened to be the things I put in your head.
Listen, Head in the Office podcast, never been wrong. Look, we're cited in academic papers.
Yes, we are. It's good takes over here.
People have reached out to us and said we used you guys for the
reference.
College essay or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but shit. Look at me.
It really doesn't matter.
It's damn near academic.
Kind of light work for
Call
guys
me
like
an
us.
Adjunct.
The last review here: 2 Dogs and a Mic by I'm gonna guess Keyboard Smash. The #1 geopolitical podcast goes hard. I also condemn Hamas.
Hell yeah, brother.
I think that puts us over 400 Apple reviews.
That's
5-star Apple reviews.
I see, but I think we need to up the proportion of Hamas condemnations, though.
Yeah, we probably got 2 condemnations for all of that.
I'm saying that's what I mean.
Basically, none of you.
400 reviews and 2, maybe 3 of you.
Yeah,
have condemned Hamas.
I don't even know if you guys condemn Hamas.
Exactly, and
we didn't get 1 condemnation at the debate.
You could call that an ambiguous statute, and I, the judge, am the one that's gonna interpret whether or not you've condemned Hamas or not.
A little spoiler for the future of the episode. Let's get into debate coverage.
Yes, sir.
Look, we got to talk about the debate, and at the top, I just want to say, a lot of people freaking the fuck out after the debate.
Yeah.
Lots of liberal media losing their minds. Some of it is justified in terms of people saying maybe we should entertain the idea of a replacement. Mm-hmm. Others, like Morning Joe, doing 3 minutes of throat clearing before finally saying that Joe Biden might need to step down. Some people are going too far. Some people aren't. Whatever. We aren't alarmists. I want you to lock in.
Yes.
Let's do some analysis.
Absolutely.
Let's look at what was said, how it came across, and what we can do about it.
And let's root it in historical trends.
Exactly.
What's happened before. And I will say, to underscore all of this, debates historically do not matter.
Yes.
What does matter is the narratives that are spun after the debates. There have been papers that have come out that have shown it's not watching the debate itself, but it's the channel you watch it on is going to change your opinion of what's going on more than the actual debate, because it's the post-debate commentary that matters.
Yeah.
Very good. No. However, I will say this one was so bad it might be the exception.
Exceptionally bad. And even if it's not the exception for like statistically not the exception, the proliferation of clips on social media, which we have played into already, might be the thing that sort of seals the deal on the perceptions of this debate specifically. So we're gonna lock in. We're gonna analyze. We're not gonna be doomer. The world isn't ending. Don't freak out too much. But we can say firmly at the top here that Biden beat the drug allegations.
Yes, he did.
He firmly
he absolutely did. He
put those to bed.
He wasn't on anything Thursday night. I can tell you
if
right
anything,
now
it was
confidence.
Late release type shit. Like, oh my God. Again, thank you to everyone that came out. It was definitely worse than expected. After watching this presidential debate, it's got me questioning the ethics of running two men aged 80 plus or close to 80.
It's just, Joe, he shouldn't be out there.
No, it feels unethical to force him to run.
It does, because it's like he looks like he's in pain when he's trying to talk. Like,
even Trump too. Like Trump was more coherent in terms of he could like string a sentence together. Bro lied a bunch, obviously, and we'll get to that. But like it feels unethical to put these dudes on stage for our entertainment.
Golly, man. For something that doesn't matter historically.
Yeah, put them in retirement homes and jail everyone at CNN and on either campaign that agreed to this monstrosity. It was absolutely terrible. As David Pakman, a known Biden meat writer, put it, it was almost a worst case scenario. Some people have spun it to say that Biden sort of locked in midway through the debate. I don't know if I fully buy that.
I think
we never at any point during this debate got a 2020 version of Biden on that stage. Yeah, it didn't happen.
And honestly, there was never a point in the debate where I was like, oh, Biden like got him. Yeah. Outside of like, I'm listening really hard to what Biden's saying and like, oh yes, this is a good policy answer. There was no clear cut like, oh, that shit was witty, that was snappy. He really owned Trump rhetorically.
It got the morals of an alley cat.
Got the morals of an alley cat. This guy.
He tweeted that line a couple of times after.
I don't know why his team thought that was the one.
Yeah.
The move is to shut up after a performance like that. The move is to not tweet at all.
The move is to go to Camp David and reflect on if you should be running at all.
Yeah, but if you're gonna tweet, it's not the alley cat line. Does that hit?
Yeah, so we'll talk about Biden potentially dropping out in his performance in a moment. We'll cover Trump's lies. We'll talk about RFK, as I said. But first off, most importantly, funniest moments. At the top, calling Biden a Palestinian. That was incredible.
Beyond parody. Damn near. Just
insane. Like for Trump to say Biden's so weak with Israel that he's basically a Palestinian,
and a bad Palestinian at that.
It's and then Trump doubled down on this after the debate and at some rally somewhere, and he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian, despite Chuck Schumer being Jewish.
Like and visiting Tel Aviv after October 7th.
Yeah,
like I feel like words can't describe how just incredible that moment was.
Yeah, no, that was a really good moment, and I feel like a lot of people brushed past that. I thought it was funny.
The audacity is just insane.
Using Palestinian as a slur,
wicked.
Yeah, that's a new level of hate.
Exactly. It was on my New Year's resolution to be diabolical, wicked, dubious, mischievous, and generally nefarious. I couldn't
have come up with that.
And I never in a million years would I have got to that point.
No, and it's like we were given debate predictions on our last episode. We never could have predicted that.
No.
No way.
You know what? We put on the bingo card. I was like, I think a new nickname is going to drop for Biden. Never in a million years was it bad Palestinian. Wow, man.
Of course, we got Joe Biden being unable to complete a sentence and then saying, we finally beat Medicare. I listened back to that sort of 2-minute answer, and I do not know what he was trying to get to with that.
Didn't that come after the moderators like, well, you have like 38 seconds left. Do you want to get something else out?
I don't remember. I don't know exactly, like but he finished it with, look, folks, we finally beat Medicare. And even my repeating it there frames it a little bit better than it was. It was bad. And that's also why I say that it feels unethical to be running Joe Biden right now. Bro had many moments where it felt like even if he knew where he was, he couldn't get a sentence out. And that doesn't feel good to do.
It's like even me, a guy that's been paying attention to this dude's entire administration, it's like I never like was necessarily like I haven't drank the Kool-Aid on the too old to run for office, unfit for office allegations before the debate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, he fell. Yeah, he would stutter. Yeah, he would have some flubs here and there. But most of his appearances were just generally fine. And he was generally fine. And it's like, oh, conservatives are just overreacting. Trump does this too. But like, when you're going out, we beat Medicare.
Yeah, and there's some people saying like, oh, well, we knew this all along. We knew how Joe Biden was. Why is anybody surprised? And to an extent, you know, we knew Joe Biden was old. We knew he struggled with a lot of things, aside from his stutter, right? Like sometimes when we see Joe Biden not know what he's saying, it's not just a stutter. It's it looks like a cognitive issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But this was exceptional.
Absolutely.
Especially compared to the State of the Union, which I think was sort of the high standard or high benchmark a lot of people were using to judge what Joe Biden could do.
And that's like the last major appearance that he's had.
Yeah.
That's the last major like talking to the American people.
Yeah. And so I don't know if it's like if he needs a teleprompter to sound good or what it is, but whatever it was, he didn't sound good, and it's hard to imagine. It's hard to say that we knew this was coming.
That's what I'm saying. So many people, oh, you knew he was old. Oh, you guys voted for this guy. Are you willing to admit that was a mistake? Now, it's like he has literally and figuratively never been this old. There's no other way to put it.
And it's like I voted for Bernie in March of 2020.
Exactly.
I voted for Bernie Sanders. Like it wasn't my first choice.
I didn't want this.
Yeah. We also got the golf moment, which was really funny. That one's had the most amount of coverage.
Yes.
And I'll admit it was crazy, but there are also other things to focus on.
I think so as well. And I've seen, you know, on the ground, getting in touch with the middle American voter.
Okay, finger on the pulse.
I've seen people try to spin the golf moment as if Trump was the mature one. I've seen so many people go out there and say, well, Trump said at the end, this is childish, we should stop.
Trump was the one that brought it up.
Exactly. He's the one that like started. Joe Biden's like, I would have loved to go golfing with you if something like this. And he's like, well, you fucking are trash at golfing. Literally,
I know your swing
in golfing. I know
you can swing. I know your swing.
You're swing. The 6 handicap, 8 handicap. I don't know what that means. This isn't for me.
Well, yeah, and it was brought up because Trump was asked about his health as like a 78-year-old man, 79-year-old man, whatever. And Trump said, oh, I just won a golf tournament. It wasn't even seniors.
Oh, true. A golf.
Like he brought it up. You know what I'm saying? He brought up the golf thing. I don't. It's silly, and it doesn't matter. Like who cares?
Saying this is childish does not exonerate you from doing the childish thing.
Yeah. Also, incredibly out of touch. By the way, two old men arguing about their golf scores while people struggle to pay rent and shit like that.
I'm pretty sure the question was something along the lines of like, families are struggling right now. Childcare is expensive. What are you gonna do about it?
I thought it was the age question. Like you're old.
It was
like how do you assuage the fears of your age?
Oh, the food question or the expensive question must have been before.
And to be clear, they didn't really answer the questions about food prices.
Didn't
or
answer.
Or
Trump didn't answer any questions.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to place any of these answers.
Biden did try for the most part on most things to answer the question, but Trump did not answer that. He would be like, well, let me talk about cops real quick.
Exactly.
Let me talk about Ukraine real quick.
Talk about cops. Let me talk about Ukraine. Ever since they asked him about Ukraine initially, every answer after that was, well, by the way, hold on. Let me go back to that.
So annoying.
Let me go back to that for the record.
Speaking of lies, in this debate, Trump brought up Charlottesville again. Actually, I think Biden brought up Charlottesville first, and then Trump said it was debunked. And at the moment when we were watching this live, we said that's obviously a lie.
Yes.
Like for Trump to say that Charlottesville didn't happen and that Biden made it up, clearly a lie. And then everybody's been commenting on our posting of it or just discourse broadly. People have been saying that Snopes disproved the whole when Trump said there are good people on both sides. And now I fucking hate that I had to go back and look at the context for the story. What Biden says and what is fundamentally true is that at the Unite the Right rally where there's a bunch of neo-Nazis in Charlottesville.
Organized by neo-Nazis. Explicitly with the purpose to unite the far-right Nazi elements of conservatism with the regular, more moderate Mitch McConnell types.
Yeah, Trump was asked about this in an interview shortly after the event happened, and he said there were good people on both sides. The Snopes article clarifies this further and says that Trump was specifically talking about the people that wanted to take down the statue of Robert E. Lee. Yes. He said there were good people on both sides of that issue, the people who wanted to keep it up, the people who wanted to take it down.
Snopes.
However, it's important to note that the people who wanted to take it down were the Unite the Right protesters. Yes. And in fact, one of the specific purposes of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, the neo-Nazis that organized it, they wanted to keep the statue up. So his characterization of the event was wrong, which Snopes noted, by the way. And he was saying there are good people on both sides. One of those sides had neo-Nazis on it.
And it's also, Snopes really just steeped themselves in technicalities here when they said the way they kind of got away with this being a fact check. on the narrative behind Charlottesville is they said, well, Trump, before he said there are fine people on both sides, says he condemns white supremacists. If you condemn white supremacists and Nazis and all forms of violence, then why are you saying there are fine people on the side that was organized by the Nazis?
Yeah, it's
to do a Nazi thing.
It's a signal to the neo-Nazis that, like, we'll publicly have to denounce it, but I support you.
Like, Snopes leaned in to the plausible deniability he gave himself there. Like, I can go out there and say, oh, I condemn violence, but like come on now.
Yeah, and like, sure, I guess you can say Trump isn't explicitly saying like, oh, the neo-Nazis were good, but when he says there's good people on both sides referring to the statues, he obviously knows that one of the main goals of the Unite the Right rally was to keep the statue up.
It's unambiguous.
Yeah, and I don't know why Snopes re-released this fucking fact check.
4 years later, before the debate. Genuine journalistic malpractice. Like, I don't understand the need to do any of this. It's settled. Bro is on video saying that. Conservatives love to say it was clipped out of context. You could go get the context easily.
I read the transcript. I read it for this thing. Yeah.
It's on video. You can do whatever. It's like 2 separate conferences where he was asked about this, and both times he said things that were implying that there were okay people with the white supremacists.
Yeah, and we'll get to more Trump lies in a bit, but that one was just silly to me. I guess the moderation was bad. We didn't really like the mods. The media coverage of it afterwards has been pretty weird. Like I said, a lot of people are focusing on the Gulf moment, but missing the point when, Trump is saying like 20 million illegal immigrants have come over, or Democratic-run states are killing babies after birth, this kind of thing. Like, I don't know why people aren't focusing more on that, and we will focus pretty intimately on those details in a little while. It's just, I feel like the media is so scared of seeming biased. And to be clear, it's fair that they're calling out Joe Biden for the terrible performance. Yeah. But I feel like they're so worried about seeming biased against Trump that they are just allowing him to get away with lying. Which is really frustrating, because it's like you can call him out on his lies and also say at the same time that Joe Biden was a walking husk of a person.
Yes.
Like, you can do, and you should do both.
And it's like,
that's fair coverage.
When Trump is lying about things, I've seen people come back after the debate and be like, well, Biden lied about X, Y, and Z. The Border Patrol didn't endorse him, whatever. The things Biden may have lied about could genuinely just be mistakes. And they were far more innocuous than Trump lying about settled facts in a criminal case, and also things that he said and did on video.
Yes. Yeah.
That is very clearly within the realm of a fair moderator to come in and say, well, actually, hold on a little bit.
Or just statistical claims. When Trump says that 20 million illegal immigrants have come over under Joe Biden, that is empirically untrue.
Absurd. There's an absurd number.
You have no proof for this. You cannot prove it. The moderators could have stepped in and said, no, these are the actual stats. Okay, continue, Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. And look, part of it is on Joe Biden to be able to make those corrections. 100%. Like, the moderators shouldn't just be running defense for Joe Biden or trying to catch Trump. Ultimately, it's up to Biden to make Trump look bad in a debate like this. But the moderators at least can do something. Especially because Biden's microphone's muted.
And you just can't have a debate without an underlying faith that these candidates will be at least attempt to be truthful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's part of moderation, is stepping in and being like, well, we're not just going to let you run off with just rampant lies.
Might as well just have AI run the moderation team.
Exactly. You might as well just let them talk it out in a room.
Yeah.
You might as well just give them a prompt.
A Jubilee video.
No, you might as well, middle ground, Joe Biden and President Trump come together, step forward if you think that too many immigrants are coming across the southern border, and then they both step forward.
Exactly. That's good.
And that's content. That's basically the same thing as what's going on here.
They should have just done a Jubilee video.
And then at the end of it, they can hug it out, and then they radical empathy.
All right, so let's talk specifically about Biden. As we said, performance was really bad. Many old man moments. A lot of pauses, struggling to get through sentences. Some liberals, as I said, have claimed that he sort of heated up later on in the debate. I'm not convinced by this argument. That's been the line that Kamala Harris and people on the campaign have been saying, like, oh, it was a tough start, but later on he got heated up, and we saw the best of Biden. And I don't think that's true.
There was not an ounce of heat. There's not an ounce of heat on the right side.
Like, and I'll admit, like, I think he did better later on.
Yeah.
But the bar was non-existent. Like, he started off slow.
There was no affect in his voice ever. There's absolutely no vigor behind anything that he said. You know what I mean? And when I say he did better, it's because he answered things more coherently. He didn't. We beat Medicare.
Yeah, there were some publications, or maybe his campaign team put out a notice that, like, he had a cold or something like that. When I get a cold, I don't, like, forget what I'm saying.
Yeah, and when I get a cold, I'm not showing up right after the debate and the next day.
Yeah.
Looking great.
Yeah, that's the other thing is there was that North Carolina rally where everyone's pointing out how he sounds a lot better. He's not as monotone. He's actually making sense. And I don't have much of an explanation for that other than it seems like he's better with the teleprompter in front of him, which is like not great for our side of the aisle, right? Like that's not a very good look that he needs a teleprompter to sound coherent.
Yeah.
He needs words in front of him to just get a 30-second clip out there. It's really not
to just
good.
stay a stat that should be ingrained in his mind.
Yeah.
As the president,
it's
bad.
Ever since we got off the live stream, I've been sort of conflicted how I want to cover this because I don't want to be reactionary in the sense that we are immediately just snapping to we need to get rid of Biden, everything is doomed. You know what I mean? But I also don't want to go too easy and say that people are just going to forget about it because I'm not convinced of that either. We've got a lot of headlines from liberal quote-unquote establishments like the New York Times. I think The Guardian maybe had some headlines as well saying that Biden needs to step down. Yeah. These were opinion pieces, op-eds. Even as we said, the Pod Save America guys were getting nervous about Joe Biden, saying that we should have a conversation about other candidates taking his place at the convention. Again, most charitable take is that people won't remember in a couple of weeks' time, but I think it's important to consider other scenarios, especially because 50 million people watched the debate.
Yeah.
And even if that's just the people at the beginning, the first 30 minutes were Biden's worst first 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it's not good to me. And even if people will forget, I don't think the calculus changes because, as we said, the sort of clip industrial complex will continue through the election.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from that. And there are many, many, many clippable moments, as TikTok has proven to us. We got 3 million on the clipped up video of our live stream that we just
most
posted.
We've ever gotten on a video.
And I'm feeling some type of way about it.
I'm gassed up. I'm self-important.
And it's got me feeling weird because it's like we put out substantive content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing that gets 3 million views is where we're just like laughing at the downfall of the country. And it's like, well, that doesn't make me feel
where
great.
I'm like, oh my God, did he really just call Joe Biden a Palestinian?
Yeah.
Oh my God, haha, we beat Medicare. That's the one that goes crazy?
Yeah.
Not when I'm explaining the court decision?
Yeah, not when we're explaining real shit.
But that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So is content.
So I want to present an argument for getting rid of Biden and then an argument against getting rid of Biden, and maybe we can sort of
I think the prevailing tone when it comes to covering this is just like nervousness. It's not to I think it's genuinely irresponsible to go out there and say like put in the New York Times Joe Biden needs to step down right now as a headline, because all that does is encourage voter apathy rather than a genuine discussion on whether or not he should step down. You know, maybe the discussion should lean 80-20 on him stepping down. You know what I mean? Maybe things aren't looking good, but there's a discussion to be had, and we can't just when we know that it is the media's responsibility for creating these narratives, we can't create the narrative that would make it harder to win.
Yeah, but I also view it as sort of significant that it's not just confined to the online left. You know what I mean?
The fact that it's the New York Times.
Yeah, for a while, it's the New York Times, it's Morning Joe, it's Democratic like Congress people that haven't revealed their names to they're being like anonymous sources for journalists. The fact that it isn't just people like us or people like Chang from TYT who's been saying this for a long time. Guess he was right.
Fuck, man, whatever. Broken clock.
But the fact that it's not just the online left, to me, it seems significant. And I don't know if it's actually going to happen. Right now, Biden is apparently meeting at Camp David with his friends and advisors, and family members too. So maybe that's the moment where they decide that he's not going to run. I'll be really pissed if he announces that tomorrow after we record. But it seems non-trivial.
Well, the thing that crossed the line for me was the Pachans.
They're the last line of defense.
Exactly. They've been going crazy with the Biden.
They will excuse everything,
especially with Israel-Palestine going on. They have spared just no excuse when it comes to just, oh no, he has to do this X reason, and they were just defeated. They couldn't do it anymore. He broke them.
Yeah. Did you listen to the?
I didn't listen to it, but I saw a little bit.
They put out like a 40-minute episode like after the debate. It was like midnight their time or something like that, and they were just depressed. Like the main guy, fucking John Favreau, was like. He sounded so defeated.
Because like, how do you when you are the Biden dick riders, like that's how you're known in the online political community.
You're liberal, the liberals.
You're the liberal. This is where the liberals congregate.
This is John Liberal.
Is Pod Save America right there. You're the prototypical liberal. Upper echelons, ivory tower liberal.
Yeah, they still praise John Fetterman. Like these, that's the level
crazy.
of,
Like that's crazy. I don't.
For them to be saying that maybe it's time to switch it up seems significant.
Absolutely,
to me.
And maybe it is then.
Especially because they got called out in an official campaign email. Self-important podcasters. How do you, they're about to be disillusioned with the Democratic Party.
Bunch of bedwetters. Maybe they're going to leave the left and go lefter.
Oh my God, that'd be good.
Wouldn't that be wicked?
Just join the Republican Party. Anyway, let's sort of talk through the logic here, right? Liberals always say that we have to do everything we can do to defeat Donald Trump. And for the most part, I agree with that, right? Yeah. As a leftist, Donald Trump's administration was terrible. Over the same period of time, the Biden administration has been significantly better. And yeah, Biden beat him last time around. But if the debate is any indication, it won't be nearly as easy as it was the first time. And it wasn't really a walk in the park the first time. What was it, 40,000 votes in the Electoral College that separated him and Trump?
There are 40,000 actual votes that separated
across a couple of different states.
Incredibly slim margins. Yeah. Incredibly slim.
It wasn't really a walk in the park last time, and it seems like Biden's ability to orate has significantly declined.
And there was also record turnout because of mail-in voting, which I don't think is going to be a thing this year.
Especially, red states and swing states like Georgia have clamp down on your ability to mail and vote, and also because COVID is gone and stuff.
Not
like that.
Because there was fraud with mail and voting, but just because people think there was.
Yeah, but and we're not gonna abandon our position as pro harm reduction voting folks.
Absolutely not.
We are still on that, and I still think it's the right thing to do. But that's not a compelling argument for people that aren't as in tune with politics as we are. For the people that don't really know the differences or haven't paid as much attention to politics for whatever reason, they aren't going to be swayed by me saying oh, well, it's a zero-sum game and you got to vote for the least bad option and stuff. I still think the argument's correct, but you need a more compelling argument, and that has to come from somebody like Joe Biden. And ultimately, I don't think this debate swayed people to Donald Trump. If anything, I think it'll sway them to stay home if we don't get some kind of turnaround, a better debate performance, better campaign moments, or whatever else.
There's no voter that saw that performance and said, well, I think I'd like Trump instead.
Yeah.
They're just going to say, I think I'm going to sit this one out.
And the thing is, we can't say that we're doing everything we can to defeat Donald Trump if this is the guy, right?
Yeah.
Biden has been better at governing than Donald Trump. Government is better under Democrats than it is under Republicans. But winning isn't about telling the truth. It's not even about having good policies. Winning is about being able to sell a narrative. It's being able to sell a compelling story to voters. And if you can't do that, then you can't win in the American electoral system.
And it's we see it. We see it every day when we look at conservatives get out there and get on the media circuit and lie. Donald Trump telling you that 20 million Nicaraguans are coming and taking local jobs at Walmart, and then when you ask them where something is, they say they'll check in the back, and then they don't look in the back. Him telling you that is creating a narrative that Republicans have run on. Republicans run on immigration, not immigration policy. They run on the idea... They run on the idea that someone from a mental asylum is coming over the border, or from a Mexican prison is running over the border to come kill your daughter. Explicitly.
And Democrats don't need to lie. I'm not telling Democrats to just bold-faced lie the way that Republicans do, but you do need to be able to sell a narrative. And one of the best places to do that is the presidential debate when you have the other guy on the stage with you. I think it was Jamel Bowie, he's a writer for the New York Times. He just was on the Majority Report. He said that Biden should have started off the debate by saying, it's a joke that I'm even on stage with this convicted felon.
Real.
If you're not the one selling that message, then who will? You can have your surrogates like Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or whoever else go up there and talk about how good the Biden administration is as much as you want. But at some point, it's got to be Biden that does it.
And it's also that is just a critical job function. Of the president of the United States.
You got to communicate.
Especially when, spoiler alert, the executive branch has just lost so much of its
90%.
90% of its power. Your job is figurehead. Your job is creating a narrative that can be distilled throughout the party to help people within your party win, and then to help enact your agenda. It's not. It's really not the agenda first, because you have to have the narrative in place to compel people to go and vote for you.
And that's the more sinister thing, is that I think if we stay the course and if Biden doesn't do any kind of turnaround, he's going to really hurt down ballot voters. Because a lot of people turn out for the presidency, and once they're there, it's not as much of a job to get them to vote for the rest of the ballot.
Straight ticket.
What I mean? Yeah, just vote. Make sure you continue to vote for your down ballot races, but it is hard to get them there in the first place. And if they're depressed and they're unmotivated to turn out because of a figure like Joe Biden, then Democrats around the country are really going to suffer. And as we know, those down ballot races matter a lot, especially in state legislatures nowadays.
The fucking Wisconsin doing communism like a year ago.
The liberal response here has been to either say Joe Biden's record is better than Donald Trump's, or to say that merely questioning Biden's candidacy now strengthens Donald Trump. And for the first one, it is true that Biden's record is better.
Yeah.
But as I said, truth doesn't matter. Truth didn't win Trump the election in 2016. He lied a ton.
And it's also...
He sold a narrative to the American people that was wrong, that was false, that was bigoted, that was harmful, but he sold a narrative.
And it's like, record doesn't matter. What matters really in a race like this one, where people have already, both people have had one term, is how people felt under the administration. Mm-hmm. And Biden's already got a big hill to climb when it comes to that one. You know what I mean? I feel like there's something genuine to be said about getting a fresh face in there who can... Politician's job is lie. You know what I mean? Who can get in there and say, look, things are going to be better under me. Because Biden, like... While we talk about how it's not necessarily his fault that things like inflation have happened, or when inflation has happened as a result of policy, it's ultimately because that policy needed to happen. The trade-offs, the complicated legislation, the complicated implications of politics. We can talk about that, and the people who are interested in politics can receive that and hear that and listen to that. But most people are like, eggs are $7 right now in California.
Yes,
like,
it's vibes based.
It's all vibes based.
It's all vibes. You have to be able to sell a story, right? Voters, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Voters are looking for a reason why everything sucks so bad. And the person who delivers them the best reason and offers them the best solution is going to get their vote. Or if they're depressed by two of them, if they're unmotivated by all their available options, they just won't go out and vote because they'll feel destitute. They'll feel like there's no solution at all. Biden in 2020 was able to sell a message that Donald Trump is making things worse and that I can make things better. I can unite the country, whatever. He was able to do that in 2020. If he can't get on a debate stage or get into public appearances and do it when 50 million people are watching, he's not going to be able to win.
And it doesn't even feel like that's necessarily a compelling message anymore.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. You know, you could only run on the I'm not Trump for the Trump race. We saw it happen in races across the country, especially in the midterms. In Virginia, homeboy tried to run on, I'm not Trump, Glenn Youngkin is literally Trump, and then he fucking lost. It's not a thing that works. And I'm not even sure it can work to beat him again. And that's another thing. Liberals are relying so hard on the idea that Joe Biden beat Trump, therefore he's the only person in the world that could beat Trump again.
He beat Trump one time, mind you. It was only once.
One time.
It's not like it's a repeated, it's once.
When shit was legitimately stacked against Trump.
Yes.
People's lives were not good under COVID, and that had far more to do with why they did not like Trump than any of Trump's policies. I can tell you that right now 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's vibes. If you can't catch a vibe on stage, then you can't get people to come vote for you.
You got to be able to sell a compelling message. And that the other part of the thing I said is a lot of liberals are saying that merely questioning Joe Biden's candidacy helps Donald Trump. And maybe it strengthens him because it makes us look disoriented and weak. But look, I don't want to be having this conversation either.
Exactly.
I wish we could come onto this episode and talk about how Biden exceeded expectations, about how now it's 60-40, Biden's going to win, how despite him being old, he still sold a message to the American people that works. I want to be able to say that, but I'm not going to get out here and force people to deny what they saw.
Absolutely, because it's just like the State of the Union. I went into the State of the Union expecting him to not be able to do anything. I expected to be bored the entire time, no substance at all. He said some bad things, but most of it was pretty all right. It exceeded my expectations. He had a lot of affect there. It was I don't want to say it was riveting. I'm not going to glaze. I'm not a pod John. But it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. It gets you fired up, gets you pumped up. Like, okay, he can run a country. He can orate a little bit. Yeah. He can inspire, maybe, if you will.
Yeah, again, the fear is not that he can't do the job. And to the extent that he's doing the job, whatever. The fear isn't that he can't appoint people to do the job around him, right? Like, the fear isn't that he has a bad cabinet, that the NLRB isn't good. Like, government, as I said, has been better under Biden than it was under Trump. The issue is, can he win the election? And can we derive an answer to that question from his debate performance? And if this is how he's going to be, if this is any indication, then I think that argument's compelling to switch up to a different candidate.
Absolutely, and especially because
I like winning. I want to win.
I want to win. I love winning. And reasonably, this is the only time where it is kind of reasonable to have that conversation. So it does have to be had. If we're having this conversation in November, yes, there were some meaningful things right there, but that would be a massive buck to historical precedent. A lot of the too old allegations were mostly like right-wing exaggerations. But now,
Well, and that's the thing I wanted to bring up is like for a long time, we've been trying to combat the misinformation around Joe Biden and acting old, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of deceptively edited videos out there where Joe Biden is shown like walking off screen. It looks like he doesn't know where he's going. But then once you uncrop it, there's a person there that he's talking to, right? But now those deceptively edited videos look a lot less deceptive because he short-circuited several times on national television, and we didn't have to do any editing to make it look bad.
He low-key glitched McConnell.
Yes.
He low-key glitched McConnell. And it's like, yeah, it was misinformation then. It's not now. It's not now. Now, going forward, every time I get a new clip of Biden or a new something of Biden that's like, oh, look, he's too damn old. It's like, what? Yeah. I guess he is too damn old.
Yeah.
And to the extent that messaging works and that galvanizes people for Trump, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen much about that, but I can't imagine it helps Biden.
Yeah, it's just my sense is that the historical moment we're in is that we're at a point where we have to prevent fascists from winning electoral power or winning political power through electoral means, right? I'm not the type of guy that thinks you can defeat fascism at the ballot box 100%, but you can use the ballot box to make it a lot harder for fascists to win entirely, right? And we're at a point where we can use the power of the vote to prevent fascists from gaining more official power. And that moment demands somebody to tell a story about where we are. And if Biden's got to, like, the person running for president ultimately has to do that at some point. And if he can't do that, people are going to feel despair, not turn out, and Trump's base is going to be galvanized to vote. And then we lose. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm not saying Biden, surefire, is going to lose the election, but it makes it a lot more likely if he can't do that.
It is your job of the figurehead of the nation to head the nation, to lead, to inspire, and
to communicate,
I don't know if he can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can do it with the teleprompter. He can do it out of State of the Union, which I guess is what you need. So maybe that's enough. It's a really complicated question.
Yeah,
like it genuinely is.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to be doomer. Our argument isn't necessarily that Biden needs to be replaced literally right now, but I think it's definitely something that we should consider.
Yeah,
it's not going to be up to us ultimately. It'll be up to like the few people around Joe Biden, like his family members, his wife that he actually trusts. But man, if this isn't reason to consider replacing him, then nothing is.
I do think if he is replaced, he needs to be replaced like right now.
Yeah.
Like this is the moment he needs to be replaced. I don't even know if you can wait till the convention. You know what I'm saying? That's at end of July is the DNC?
I think it's August.
I don't think you cannot wait that long to announce that this guy's gone.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let him retire.
Yeah. And look, to be clear, our argument from all the times we've talked about harm reduction voting has never been that Joe Biden should be the guy, only that you got to vote for whoever the Democrat is over Donald Trump. We never advocated for there to not be a primary, right? But we just said, like, historically, there usually isn't when there's an incumbent. It just isn't a thing that happens.
In that moment in time where primaries were happening, it would have been a waste of time and money and resources to hold a primary.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't going to work. Joe Biden was the guy, and like I said, it was mostly misinformation before.
Yeah.
But now, like a bad omen, he's made good on all that.
And it's all the DNC's fault, because the people closest to Biden knew what he's like.
Yeah.
And again, we had a sense that he was old, that he struggled to get through sentences sometimes, but the people close to him knew the full extent of it. And I'm sure when they were prepping him for debate, they knew what it would be like. Man. Yeah, you're the ones prepping him for a week at Camp David or whatever. It's on the DNC to be able to make good decisions about who they're going to run and defeat Donald Trump. And if they're going to get in the way, it's going to be their fault for Donald Trump getting reelected. I don't want to hear them blame the voters or the leftists or whatever else. It's going to be on them. Yeah.
All these bedwetters getting and complaining. And it's also just like, it has made me so genuinely and radically annoyed seeing, like, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. You lose the pod, Johns. You've lost liberal America. You've lost liberal America.
They have their hands on like 5 million people weekly.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God, it's insane their reach.
They got like 18 different podcasts, and they each get like 8 million views on every episode. Like you're done if you can't get them.
They reach far and wide.
Yeah.
Tell me why I go on Twitter and I see these fucking liberal accounts being like, oh my God, this is rooted in deep-seated ableism, that we don't want to let a guy who's got a raspy voice and a bit of a crooked walk be president, even though he's done a fine job. Or I can't believe people are really ringing the alarm, but we should be rallying behind Biden rather than thinking about other options. Really? We shouldn't be thinking about other options. These are probably two of the least popular guys in modern American presidential history.
Yeah.
they both have had abysmal approval ratings throughout their presidency, record lows.
Well, yeah, and like usually I think that when people say like blue MAGA, I usually think it's pretty corny, but this is the closest we've got to it.
Absolutely.
What, just like unthinking and getting behind, refusing to critically think and just getting behind the guy because he's what your party says you have to follow?
Genuine zealotry.
Yeah.
Like what is he, fucking God?
Yeah.
I don't understand. We can swim.
I think it's a sign of a healthy Democratic electorate that we're willing to question him after we've seen compelling evidence. Like, we don't want to be like the Republican Party just follows Donald Trump, and we criticize them for just blindly following whatever he has to say.
Yes.
When Biden turns in a performance this abysmal, should we really just fall in line?
Yeah.
Is that what the Democratic Party is? What's the difference?
But the other guy's got the morals of an alley cat.
Like, yeah, Republicans are worse, but holy moly. I thought we wanted to be a bit more reflective of what people wanted. And once again, it is the DNC's fault that we're in this position. I wish we could have had this conversation 8 months ago.
Absolutely.
Like, if the DNC would have said, Biden's getting old, he's going to step down, let's have a real primary.
That would have been the responsible thing. If we, the public, are now aware of exactly how old Biden is and how bad Biden is, this must have been a problem going on a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they had to have known. It's bad. Now, there is one massive caveat, right?
Okay,
we're talking about all of this and giving the argument for Biden to step down. The question of should he actually do it, though, is a little bit complicated because the entire argument hinges on we want to be able to defeat Donald Trump, and we're questioning if getting rid of Biden at this point would actually lead towards or provide space for us defeating Donald Trump. And on that, I don't know. And I'm not saying that out of fealty for Biden. It's just like I want to win, and I genuinely don't know what the right course of action is.
It's not that like Biden is the only guy who can beat Trump. It's like, is 5 months enough amount of time to get somebody like fucking Gavin Newsom, I guess, or Gretchen Whitmer, or even Kamala Harris, God forbid. You know what I mean? To get them popular enough for 80 million people to vote for them.
Another consideration is whoever, like if it's not Kamala Harris specifically, anybody else wouldn't have access to all of Biden's campaign funds.
Which is, that's a huge caveat.
I would think
a huge thing to consider.
I don't know specifically. Someone who's better, who knows more about finance, election finance can let us know in the comments. But I would think that it just goes to the Democratic Party, and then they can just spend it on behalf of the candidate.
The campaign can choose, like, can Biden not direct his campaign or his former campaign funds to spend that money on somebody else?
Oh, well, he can't. Oh, I guess I don't see why the campaign couldn't spend that money on behalf of someone else. Yeah.
Because why not?
Instead of just giving it to him. Because legally, you can't donate, like, what, $400 million, however much they have. You can't just give that to a campaign. But plausibly, Kamala Harris could take over and just use the campaign money to fund whoever's running indirectly.
Yeah. Could she not? Should she not run? Could she not work with another person to announce a joint campaign or something like that, where we are going to do the finance? I don't know. Yeah,
not even joint. Just say like all the funds are going to be used to help you, but I can't give them to you.
Yeah,
like I guess I don't see why that couldn't happen. The caveat here, of course, is that for all this discussion, that our interpretation of events, how pundits feel generally, all the punditry on this issue may not necessarily be reflective of the average voters. And I know that's hard to consider.
Yeah.
Because when we were watching it, we're like, what the fuck is going on? I'm sure if you watch it alongside us, or if you're as in tune as we are, you were thinking, wow, this is really bad for Joe Biden. But much like with the Fetterman debate in 2020 against Mohammed Oz, it could be the case that voters are looking at this debate and thinking, wow, that really sucks, but he kind of reminds me of my grandpa. Yeah. Or in the case of Fetterman, like, oh, he's just like my uncle.
He's just like my uncle. Like, huh?
Like, that genuinely could be how voters are feeling. We don't have polling out. We know that voters said, or people that watched it said they think Trump won the debate overall, but we don't know what the polling data is, and it could come out that this debate really doesn't swing the electorate at all.
And it's like, I don't know. I can't see a situation where Trump picked up voters with his performance.
Right.
Like, I also can't really see a situation where Biden picked up any voters either, but maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. The electorate is complicated.
And it just seemed like it could be the case that maybe the debate doesn't make much of an impact long term. Maybe it's the clips that matter more, whatever. It seems like if the stakes are so high, and I think they are with Donald Trump, do we really want to gamble on that?
Yeah.
Especially when there are people within the Democratic Party that we know could or rate far better than Biden, Gretchen Whitmer from a swing state of Michigan.
Yes.
Is that a gamble we want to make on Joe Biden? I just don't know if I'm comfortable making that gamble.
Yeah. Especially when there are upwards of 3 Supreme Court nominations next term. Mm-hmm. Two of them being conservative, I think one being liberal. We could have a 7-2 Supreme Court should Trump win the presidency. And that 7-2 Supreme Court is replacing 2 old conservative justices with 2 young ones.
Yeah, that's a conservative court for the next 60 years.
That is genuine. That is borderline democracy ending right there. With the, oh my goodness.
Yeah. I will say as a consideration that Biden has brought in $27 million following the debate, meaning that people might be nervous, pundits might be nervous, but at the very least, it seems the donors are still behind Biden to some extent.
Are those like small dollar donations?
For whatever
though?
That's probably not. But for whatever it's worth, he raised $27 million after the debate. But again, of course, also there's been a sort of chill cascade of op-eds coming out about Biden. So I don't know. It's hard to tell where we're at right now, and I'll give it. What do you think the odds are on like Biden coming out with a major decision tomorrow after we record, like 12 hours from now?
Oh my God, I'd
24
say,
hours from now.
I'd say there's like a 10% chance we figure out what they were talking about at Camp David tomorrow, or just like before Wednesday, maybe a 10-15% chance.
Because the campaign has already said no, Biden's the guy. We read off the email top of the episode saying Biden is the guy. But of course, that's what they say after the debate.
Yeah,
they wouldn't come out and say like, oh no, we're reconsidering.
And that's not something that's gonna like matter in the minds of people should he not be the guy. You know what I mean? That's just an email to his most loyal supporters.
Yes.
So it's like that's not something where they're considering like, oh, we've made these public statements, we might have to abide by them. No, I still think there's room for him to step down.
100%. Yeah.
Should he want to?
Well, and speaking of that, we can get into the sort of nitty gritty of what that would look like. Biden could step down at any point. Ultimately, it will have to be him that makes the decision unless he fucking dies, which. It's hard, I get human mortality is a thing. It's hard for me to imagine any of like evil people dying ever,
I think so too.
Like life after Trump,
live forever.
Yeah. Life after Trump is hard to imagine. You know what I mean? So it would have to be Biden's decision. It's not like the DNC could force him to step down, even if they had the strength to do that.
Yeah.
It's got to be Biden because he's the one with the 4,000 delegates at this point. Again, blame the DNC for putting us in this position. And low key, minor conspiracy theory, which might just be the truth. I feel like the debates were planned so early, specifically so we could have a chance to reconsider before the convention.
That's true.
Why else would they be in June?
Why else would they be June and September?
Yeah.
Like that's a weird gap already, and June is weirdly early. Maybe. There was that statement that came out that from like Biden's aides anonymously that was like, yeah, he's good from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. After that.
And that's valid.
It's valid.
I can't say it's not. Yeah.
When I get home from work, I'm also not the best. But
I couldn't go and do a debate. Yeah. So if you're wondering what exactly replacement would look like, if Biden steps down himself or otherwise refuses the nomination, his 4,000 some delegates at the convention in August would be free to choose somebody else. They would do I can't remember, I think it's called like an open convention is what they would do. They would vote for somebody else. I would guess this would lead to it would be pretty messy, but I think ultimately, given the media environment we're in, it would actually be pretty good for the Democrats to get like 24-hour news coverage on a convention. Like,
that's true, yeah.
Because if Biden's not the guy, if Biden's the guy, we're going to get like a normal amount of coverage because he's going to give a speech, others will give a speech. But if Biden's not the guy and it's like a frenzy to see who's going to be the candidate, we're going to get blanket coverage for days.
We might for once get coverage from the DNC that overshadows the egregious things that happen at the RNC. I have never once seen a cool clip from the DNC, but the RNC, they're bringing out anybody who did anything bad over the last 4 years. Kyle Rittenhouse, the people who got famous for pointing guns at Black Lives Matter protesters on their lawn, like they brought them out at the RNC. That's crazy.
I bet they'll bring out the N-word girl. The girl who's like broke ass.
Oh, hell yeah.
I bet she gets a spot.
Probably, actually.
That'd be awesome. But at the convention, these delegates would be free to vote for whoever they want. I would guess we'd get speeches from people like Gavin Newsom, maybe Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, whoever. And then they would be able to vote. It's unlikely they get to a majority because in the primary at the convention, you need a strict majority. Plurality does not win you the nomination. You need a majority. After that happens, we'd go to a brokered convention where the super delegates come in. Very fun thing that the Republican Party doesn't have anymore, by the way. Nice. The super delegates, which is like 700 some party elites, basically would come in and be able to cast a vote as well. And then we would get eventually, after doing that, how many times we need, we would get a candidate. It's most likely, if Biden doesn't run, that it's just Kamala Harris, though.
I think so too. I have seen discourse on Twitter of could we really pass up Kamala Harris for somebody else like Gretchen Whitmer or something like that. And it's like, I do agree that could optically be bad, but I also feel like Kamala Harris is optically bad. You know what I mean? nobody likes her.
Nobody likes her. She's some of Biden had to have rubbed off on her because she's not as good at orating anymore.
Exactly. Like she used
during
to
the
be
debates,
fine.
she was pretty good at it. Also, like she was a DA. She, I think, is of healthy mind and body. Like she shouldn't be struggling like Biden.
I don't understand, but it's like she hasn't had a charismatic media moment like throughout this presidency.
You think you fell out of a coconut tree? Like I genuinely don't know what's wrong with her.
Do not come.
But the most likely scenario would be that Biden steps down and the delegates would just pick Kamala Harris because she's the running mate.
For sure.
I don't see any other scenario.
She was a part of the team that beat Trump.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can't feasibly see a place where Gretchen Whitmer wins. I think if it was an open primary, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris weren't doing anything, Big Gretch all the way, baby.
Well, I'd be supporting Big Gretch, but I think Gavin Newsom wins at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think we would talk more about the optics of individual potential candidates if we get to that point. There's no use in talking about like, oh, how would Gretchen Whitmer play out in a place like Arizona? Like we shouldn't talk about this right now.
I still think Gretchen Whitmer plays out better than Gavin Newsom.
Well, she's from a swing state, Michigan. She got Michigan locked down 2 times in a row.
She's not from California. Burden.
Yeah, important. But most likely, probably Kamala Harris. And ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see. But again, I just want to put a really, really sharp pin in this. It's the DNC's fault where we are now. And that is separate, by the way, from the argument that you should vote for whoever the Democrat ends up being, even if it's Joe Biden.
Yes.
That's different from the argument that harm reduction is the only way to engage with our electoral systems morally. The argument that the DNC sucks and that you got to vote for harm reduction are two separate things that are both true at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't want you to get twisted. It's where we are, unfortunately. Do you ever think, I want to buy my way into heaven?
Always.
I want to buy my way into the good graces of the people that I'm listening to in my ears right now.
That's right.
You can do that if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. And not only will you be supporting the show, not only will you get early access to all of the content that we produce, but you'll also get an ad-free experience on the Patreon every Sunday, every time we release an episode.
You'll be able to pull up to the sermon on Sunday, on the Lord's Day, to hear the gospel as it's spoken.
Yeah, no more being late, no more interruptions mid-episode if you're listening to this ad right now.
Exactly.
It's on patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's one of the best ways to support the show. It's one of the longest enduring ways to support the show.
Help buy a pass from all the sins you've committed. Start coming to church.
Yeah.
And we can get things going.
Yeah, that's only if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's in the description. It's there for you. Still talking about the debate, though, because we haven't even gotten to our boy Donald Trump.
Exactly. The viral moments. Big media man over here.
Big media guy. Trump repeatedly lied throughout the debate about all manner of issues, which we'll get to specifics in just a moment. Second half of the debate was pretty bad for him. I do think Trump started to fall off, but there was never a moment where I really felt like Biden had him on his heels. Except for maybe the convicted felon stuff, but even then, it's just like... It wasn't that Biden didn't stick the hits like he needed to.
And I guess while we are talking about this, I feel the prevailing narrative like that came out of this debate based on like that I see as, given to me through memes is Trump lied and Biden just kind of didn't know he was there.
Trump lied, Biden died.
And exactly. And I think the Trump lied, maybe that hurts him more than the Biden thing does. I feel like that may be a bit more damning to like an average voter to have what is your label being egregious liar or too old. I think the egregious liar hurts a little bit more in some cases.
You don't think that the coverage of Biden being old is like overshadowing the Trump liar though? Like
that's
the Trump liar
true.
stories.
Yeah,
like I feel like everyone's focusing on Biden.
New York Times is not writing op-ed on op-ed on op-ed of Trump needs to step down because he's a liar.
Well, yeah, and it's like the relationship there is fundamentally different. Like we could write op-eds for days about how Trump should step down, and it wouldn't matter. But when it's about Biden, presumably the party that cares about truth and not lying to their base, that's supposed to be more significant. But yeah, like I feel like CNN's coverage immediately after was, holy shit, Biden sucked.
Yeah,
it wasn't that Trump lied a bunch, even though Trump lied nonstop.
And it's crazy because, like, in a better world, in a more just world, I think being hit with egregious liar versus old man is way worse. But I guess now that I think about it more, Trump has been labeled with egregious liar for the past 8 years, and
that's another thing. Is like,
it hasn't done anything to him.
It's like we saw the extremes of both men on that debate stage. We knew Trump was a liar. He was lying like crazy on this debate stage.
Just letting him fly.
We knew Biden was old, and he was really old. Like, we need to find the middle. You know what I mean? We need to find the middle ground. I'm a centrist.
We can't be on these two extremes, people.
But I want to run through a couple of these lies specifically that I thought were the most egregious. So at the debate, Trump claimed that you can, quote, take the life of a baby in the 9th month and even after birth when describing Democratic-run states. Of course, this is objectively false.
That's a Trump classic, though.
There is no state in the union that is taking the life of a baby after birth. And the 1% of abortions happening in the 3rd trimester are for medical complications, often when the mothers intend to keep the baby.
I think Biden tried to deliver that line, but he couldn't.
Like, if he can't, we will.
That's a problem. That's a problem that he can't simply say 93% of abortions are 1st trimester, 6 are in 2nd, and 1% are 3rd for medical exemptions. But he tried to do it in like a snappy way. He's like, the 1st trimester is the mother, the 2nd is the mother and her doctor, and then the 3rd is something.
And then he went into a tangent about how an immigrant killed a mother or whatever.
Yes.
You remember that?
No.
That was really weird.
Wasn't oh my god.
Or maybe that was the Medicare question, actually.
Didn't he go into a tangent about how we need abortion because immigrants are coming over? And
that's so good.
And assaulting women. Like, wasn't that one of the things that he said?
Oh, yeah, because he said immigrants are coming over and then they're raping women, and also women are getting raped by their brothers and sisters.
And that's why we need Roe.
Yes.
And then Trump took that and said, oh, yeah, 20 million immigrants are coming, and also I'm the guy that did Roe v. Wade. I'm the guy that got it gone.
Yeah, it was good.
Awful.
Abysmal dog shit. Trump also claimed that 20 million illegal immigrants have entered the United States under the Biden administration. This is just simply not true. As of early 2024, the number was closer to 6.3 million border encounters, which does not mean they were let into the country. It means they were encountered by Border Patrol. Trump further claimed that immigrants are coming over to take, quote unquote, black jobs.
Crazy moment.
And he also claimed that Biden is giving immigrants Social Security. Objectively false. I don't even know how you would empirically prove either of those claims.
I don't know. And I've seen people try to do the thing where he's like, no, he's just talking about like jobs that black people take. But 1, pitting minorities against each other.
Yes, crazy.
2, it's like there's a cultural assumption that when you say immigrants are taking people's jobs, they're not taking white collar jobs. And there's an implication there that you think that black people only have the type of jobs that an immigrant would take. And it's like there's so many layers to how just racist and wrong that statement is.
Yeah, it's like he's implying that like, oh, immigrants are taking these low wage jobs. Black people should work those. Exactly. It's like really weird. Yeah. It's like a triple quadruple in entendre for racism.
Only a racist would think that that's a good point.
Yeah. Trump, of course, claimed that everyone on the left and right wanted him to overturn Roe versus Wade, a blatant lie that he has repeated several times. Yes. Trump claimed that he did not sleep with Stormy Daniels. It is a fact of the case that he slept with Stormy Daniels because that's what the hush money payments was for. Trump obviously denies that he slept with Stormy Daniels, but he was convicted by a jury of his peers that he did the hush money. Why else would he have done the hush money if not to cover for the fact that he slept with Stormy Daniels?
Well, he did the hush money to stop the rumor that he slept with her because she was spreading false rumors.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
No. He would never cheat.
Even though after the hush money, yeah, whatever. it doesn't matter. Trump also claimed, not really a lie, this one, but just something that is completely untrue. Trump claimed that he would settle the war in Ukraine as president-elect, which I don't know how can you just claim that and the moderators let it slide?
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that, brother.
Moderators didn't say, oh, president-elect, what do you mean?
Yeah.
He just said he would do it as president-elect. And then on top of all of this, the small amount of policy substance we got from Trump was just bad. He repeated his 10% tariffs on all imports line, which again, harm the consumer, raise average prices.
I do have to say that is the only moment in the entire 90 minutes where I thought Biden had a good response to something, because he responded to that question with his follow-up by saying that would raise the price for average Americans like $3,100 a year. Like if you impose a 10% tariff, that's a tariff. That's a tax on everybody. I don't want to tax anyone that's making under $400,000, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. I don't think the delivery was there, but I think that was like the one response he had.
The delivery was never there.
And I was like, that's good.
We're digging. We're digging and clawing. Trump said he would let Israel, quote, finish the job. Whatever you can infer from what he means there.
Crazy.
Yeah, just insane. He repeatedly fear-mongered about immigrants, quote, killing our people. That's a thing he said during the debate. And, of course, as you already said, he took responsibility for overturning Roe v. Wade. He said, everyone wanted me to do it, so I appointed the justices to do it. at the very least, the Biden campaign can get a clip out of that one.
That'll be a good one.
Pretty explicit. Yeah. So all around, really bad performance from Trump. Lied repeatedly. He just talked a bit more convincingly than Biden did.
And you know what? Trump probably had my favorite tactic of this whole debate, and that was being asked a question and then just talking about Ukraine.
Yeah, Biden should have done that. Like, legitimately, fire with fire would have been better than whatever the fuck he cashed in.
And it's like, it's absolutely egregious. And I forgot to talk about, but it's hard because the prevailing narrative, you cannot get away from the Biden too old allegations.
Yeah.
But like when he did give a substantive answer, there were a couple good ones. The whole entire debate kind of just glossed over Israel-Palestine, which I thought was so incredibly interesting, considering that massive issue. AP's got it on their fucking banner right up top. Click Israel-Palestine updates right there. That's how you know it's big. You know what I mean? And Trump was asked if he would support a two-state solution, and he said, well, I'll get back to that. I want to talk about Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
He never got back to it. Where's the moderation? That is what an unbiased moderator would say. The question was, can you answer the question?
They did that like once or twice. Like, you got 30 seconds left. You want to answer the question on childcare or whatever. They did that like once or twice, but it was mostly missing.
But it's like the absence of moderation. And Joe Biden's answers on the one Israel-Palestine question that he got, there was like 5 minutes designated for Israel-Palestine that got taken up with like 3 of them being about Ukraine. But Joe Biden's answer was, we need to eliminate Hamas, which is just feeding into Netanyahu's framing that is getting us where we are right now.
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything from Joe Biden, but I expected, I guess, something a little better than that.
Yeah, and we thought maybe Trump could flank him from the left on humanitarian stuff. Trump did not flank him from the left at all.
Like,
it would have been smart. It would have been smart.
I thought he was going to cynically pretend to care about like human lives, but instead he used Palestinian as a slur.
Wicked debate, yeah. And I think CNN would probably back up and say we didn't talk about it more because polling indicates that it's like, what, the 7th highest thing that when we poll, like, concerns of Americans. But above that is things like inflation, the economy, abortion. Like, if you ask people, what's your number one issue, they're probably going to say something that's directly affecting them, but they might still deeply care about what's happening in Palestine. Like, if somebody asked me, what's my biggest issue right now, I'd probably say climate change, right? Yeah. Like, that's the biggest threat to the world.
Like life.
But that doesn't mean I don't care about other things.
Absolutely. But it's like, if I'm Biden at least, or at least if I'm on Biden's team, I'm telling him, maybe we should give maybe not even a nuanced answer, but an answer that's not directly bloodthirsty about this, considering that you have significantly lost the 18 to 25 demographic.
Yeah, like, that could have been a good chance to win somebody.
Yeah, there's genuine strategy behind, like, let's do something here to help the people that we've pissed off.
Yeah. Now, to end off the Trump section, if Biden stays the candidate, do you think Trump will even do another debate, or you think he'll just leave it at that?
I hope he does.
Yeah, well, I hope he does too.
I hope he does. I don't know. I think he does.
Okay.
I think he does because I think Trump would say, if he did that, we'll just get him again.
See, I'm wondering if, sort of similar to the GOP primary, he'll just be like, no point in debating him. Because he got all the clips he can get. Like, this was,
that's true, for
all intents and purposes, the best case scenario for Donald Trump.
I feel like with the GOP primary debate, it was more a situation where he genuinely had something to lose.
Yeah.
Like, he genuinely had something to lose. Not with, like, Chris Christie, but, like, should Ron DeSantis say something? If Ron DeSantis is so,
he would have legitimized them, yeah.
He's legitimizing their candidacy. He can't legitimize the current president of the United States. And it feels like Trump really only has something to gain by getting these old man moments out, as we've seen.
Yeah.
So I think he does do another debate if it comes up.
Wouldn't be surprised if we got like a Gavin Newsom, like the Hail Mary. And I can't express how much that's a Hail Mary. And then Trump's like, no, I'm not debating. He's an illegitimate candidate. They got rid of Biden. I'm not debating Gavin Newsom.
We that'd be amazing if we get like the Ron DeSantis Gavin Newsom debate. We just get a completely frivolous Trump Gavin Newsom debate.
I can't express how literally anybody else in the Democratic Party would have fucking stomped Trump. You put Pete Buttigieg up there and it's over.
Oh my God, I know, man.
Pete, I don't even fuck with Pete like that. I don't like Pete for the most part, but he would have any Democrat would have annihilated Trump. Bernie Sanders could have annihilated Trump in that moment.
He could annihilate Trump in 2016 and 2020 and 2024. We had 12 years to get him up there.
Best option.
Whatever.
I think we should talk about Robert.
I think we should talk about the third candidate that people seem to be discounting.
The real debate.
The real candidate
for the presidency. So at the same time as the real presidential debate, RFK held a fake presidential debate, which included him on the debate stage as well.
I didn't think he was going to go that far. I did not think he was going to go so far as to create a screen where it is as if he is sitting on the debate stage with the two candidates.
And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that they had a frame where his head was next to the other two.
Yeah.
It's that they had a whole stage with a podium that looked like the CNN stage. They had a screen behind him that was playing the Biden-Trump debate. They had a moderator sitting at an official-looking table. They had an audience there where it looked like it was supposed to be a real presidential debate. They fully LARPed this.
That is like...
It's a level of commitment that I got to applaud.
Give him a swirly.
Yeah.
Give him a swirly, put him in a locker.
Yeah. And also, my favorite part was they're starting off like this the real debate, and when Biden and Trump walked out, they were announced by Fake Yapper and Dana Bash. And then the moderator at the RFK debate announced RFK, and he walked out after them. And he walked out after Biden and Trump walked out. It was really funny.
How did they wing it like that? Because this was live as the debate was live, wasn't it?
Yeah, they would. They'd have Trump and Biden answer the questions, and then they would just
Would they pause?
Mute the live stream, and have RFK answer it as well. And it was really funny because RFK would start to answer the question. He would have a 2-minute timer in front of him, which is wholly a self-imposed shackle. And he would get cut off by his moderator every single time. His moderator would just be like, "Oh, back to the CNN debate." It's really funny. He's sitting in the cuck chair.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched most of it. I skipped over the Biden and Trump parts because I'd already seen them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just got to RFK's answers, and I mean, I'll go through a couple of highlights, but it was funny. It was just so unserious. But if we want to go through a couple of highlights here, the first thing I wrote down when I was watching this at 2 times speed was that his voice was so hard to listen to.
It is.
Even at 2 times speed. If I genuinely think if RFK would have been on the stage at the same time, he would have made Biden's hoarse voice look a lot better.
Shit, hell yeah.
Because RFK sounded terrible.
CNN made a mistake.
Yeah.
CNN made a mistake. They should have let him on.
As I said, his own moderator kept cutting him off. RFK immediately opened it up with complaining that he wasn't allowed on stage with Biden and Trump. I want to remind you all that there's this narrative that's being spun, at least by the RFK side, however small it is, that RFK was like silenced. He was censored. He was kept from the debate stage, and they're trying to hide something from the American public. I want to stress this to you. He didn't meet the qualification requirements.
He cannot possibly win.
Yes, at this time. It might be the case that he'll get on enough ballots to win. But at the time of the June 27th debate, RFK was not on the ballots in enough states to add up to 270 to win the Electoral College. There's no point in taking that seriously if you legitimately can't win. You can't just get any schmuck up there.
Literally, it's not even legitimately like how he legitimately can't win should he be on the ballot in every state.
It's not like a third party in the Electoral College situation.
It is a literal impossibility that if we had the election today, he could win.
Yeah. Not to mention the polling requirements, which he says that he met, which it isn't clear that he actually met. It's just like he's trying to sell this thing like, this is the truth that's being silenced. It's the classic conservative thing they do on like rumble.com. You know what I mean? It's just like you literally didn't meet the requirements. And if you do meet the requirements, they'll probably let you on, but you didn't.
Oh my God, man!
It's just annoying.
What a loser.
He also whined about not getting Secret Service protection, but he might have a point there. Because candidates, if they are real, they get Secret Service protection because they could be the president. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask, does Trump get Secret Service protection? But then I remembered he was the president, so he just gets a detail for the rest of his life.
And when Biden was a candidate, he had Secret Service protection.
So like Romney,
I'm guessing Byrne and Mitt Romney had Secret Service protection because he could have been president. RFK complained about not getting it, and he might have a point. Kennedy,
I fucking get,
but nobody sees him as a threat. I don't think.
There's a history there.
Yeah.
There's a history there.
Yeah, he blamed inflation on government spending, basically biting the Trump line.
Okay.
He didn't mention COVID's effect or the Russian attack on Ukraine's effect or supply chain issues that actually impacted inflation, of course. He did the classic bread and butter RFK move, which is rail against COVID lockdowns.
Oh, that's good.
That was really good to see.
Did he drop any bangers like the COVID vaccine was genetically modified to skip Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
Oh, well, no, that was taken out of context. He only explicitly said that when he thought the cameras were off.
He never would have said that if he knew the camera was on. So I don't think we can hold him to that.
He blamed Trump and Biden for the amount of COVID deaths that we had. But he blamed it on them because they did lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
Oh, yeah, the lockdowns are what killed people. Depression.
Even though it was conservatives that were fear-mongering about vaccines and saying the masks didn't work, you shouldn't have to wear them.
That's crazy. I'm pretty sure that was a Trump line.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the lockdown killed people is a Trump line.
Oh, and when we got to the border, we explicitly got a Trump line from RFK. He explicitly said, like, yeah, I think Trump is right on the border here. He said that Biden is letting in too many people and that our immigration law is run by drug cartels.
Is there a huge swath of like middle America that I've just never encountered in my entire life that the only thing they care about is immigration? Why is everyone going righter and righter and righter? You got to search far and wide to find a good immigration take. Like.
RFK defended Putin, which was pretty cool, basically saying that he even went back to like the 2014 invasion of Crimea and was saying that like Putin was justified in doing that.
He was so right to annex part of Georgia or whatever.
Yeah. He was bringing up like the failed diplomacy from the United States and all this stuff. He, of course, was more Zionist than Biden, saying everything Trump said about finishing the job and even advocated for an Israel-Hezbollah war. He said that Israel is going to go to war with Hezbollah and we need to support them. This came after he was denouncing Biden and Trump's take on funding for Ukraine, which is just like, all right.
I love that. I love that.
You can't be the no new wars guy, or you can't say that like we need to stop the American war machine and then be like, oh, but Israel's going to war and we need to help them out. It doesn't compute. He agreed with Trump on immigration in the sense that it's hurting black workers. He said that that's correct. He said he's been to the border and he sees that immigration's hurting black workers.
Come on, man. How did you see that?
And then he went on a tangent about how school choice needs to be in place for black students, which is like, it does the opposite of what he thinks it does, I guess.
Literally.
Yeah. He did some economic populism, talking about, meeting grocery and rent costs and stuff like this. But this is the same thing Trump does. You know what I mean?
It's
like
the bare minimum.
It's just populism. His one redeeming quality is his position on climate change, which I think he generally is knowledgeable about. I guess it's the one part of his brain that the worm did not eat. Yeah. So that wasn't too bad. He also said he would take money from the military to pay for childcare, which seems cool, but strangely, this was his solution to national debt.
That makes sense because it's childcare that's eating up the national debt.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's the ridiculous amount of government subsidies that we subsidize childcare.
Well, he said he wanted to subsidize childcare, like he wanted to take money from the military to childcare. And that's how he's going to solve the national debt, but it's like money's still gone.
Yeah, I was going to say we just
I support childcare though.
We didn't pay down the principal.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, ultimately, look, RFK, he does some decent left-ish wing economic populism, but he's a Zionist running alongside a Silicon Valley tech billionaire.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think any of his positions are serious, and he also has harmful positions on Israel, on immigration, on inflation. He's a vaccine conspiracy theorist. And he can't win. Like, he fundamentally can't win.
I've seen a lot of people comment in the wake of this debate, oh, y'all didn't take RFK seriously. Still don't. I'm still not taking. Honestly, I take him less seriously after he made a fake debate stage.
On our clip of the debate that's got like 3 million views now, a lot of maybe like 15% of the comments are voting for RFK or make sure to vote RFK, and it's like he can't win. I feel like people fundamentally don't understand how that works with the Electoral College, and he's also worse than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Like significantly worse than Joe Biden, especially because people that are considering voting for RFK are doing so because of Biden's position on Israel, when RFK is worse than Joe Biden when it comes to helping Gazans.
He's like an amalgam of all their worst qualities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad. So final thoughts on the debate before we talk about my favorite institution.
That's right.
First, we're not doomed. Lock in. Things are not over. There's a very small chance, maybe 10% chance that Biden gets replaced, but most likely he's going to be the guy. I say slim chance because tomorrow, again, they could drop. Biden's dropping out, find a new guy.
You know what? And I'm confident that if they do drop a new guy, it's going to be between Sunday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
In the next 2 weeks.
And I'm praying for that, frankly. Exactly. Wednesday after 12 o'clock when the episode drops.
Precisely, yeah.
The fact remains that Trump still has to lose. The Republican Party still has to lose. It doesn't really matter who the candidate is. I would vote for a rock that had a D painted on it before I'm voting for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's worse.
You know what I mean? In a general election scenario.
Yes.
Not in the primaries. Very important.
Exactly.
Very important.
And if you feel like you're doom spiraling, get registered to vote. Learn about your state and local elections, especially your state and local primaries, because it is that time of the year. We are in primary season. Jamal Bowman progressive just lost his primary to a Zionist conservative Democrat in New York 16th district. Figure out what your primaries are. In the state of Michigan, we have primaries coming up in August where a progressive is on the ballot for Senate.
Till Harper. And
we can make it happen and be excited to vote for somebody in November, but you got to vote for him.
I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna shed a literal tear at the ballot box. Should I have to check out Biden slot in. Come on, man.
I know. It's going to be bad. So if you're in Michigan, get registered. If you're anywhere, get registered to vote. Links in the description, vote.org. And, of course, learn about your ballot initiatives and certainly the primaries. And rest assured that if anything can save us, it's the evil nature of the Supreme Court and the fact that will galvanize people to vote in November.
No, because I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago about how Biden should be running against the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
There's never been a greater argument for packing the court, right, than there is right now as well.
Yeah, if anything can save us, it's going to be the fact that the Supreme Court is so goddamn evil.
He could get on there and he could debate fucking Alito, and it'd probably fare better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, speaking of, we can get into the Supreme Court decision.
Speaking of, why don't we talk about one of the worst decisions in modern American history? I feel like we say that a lot. You know, and I feel like we say that a lot.
But with this one, genuinely disastrous.
Probably the most, how do I put it? Probably one of the worst decisions in the last 40 years. Yeah. It's up there with Roe v. Wade being overturned. Yeah. Spoiler alert, Chevron got overturned.
Yeah, people. And it's hard to think, but if we go pound for pound, number of people hurt by these decisions. Yeah. Dobbs obviously is hurting an immense amount of people to this day, especially
half the people in the country.
But you got to think, and we'll get into the exact specifics of Chevron in a moment, but the number of regulations that are going to be at threat that protect people's lives.
There are hundreds of thousands of regulations on the books. From OSHA to the EPA to the FDA to the SEC to any acronym you can think of, really.
The Chevron decision will be disastrous, not just for the power of the government to regulate companies, but for the average American. Yeah. It's going to be bad.
Oh, my goodness. But, before we dive into the Chevron case and all that's related to that, we have not gotten anything about the Trump immunity decision.
Good point.
Expect that in between the Sunday drop and the Wednesday drop. You know what I'm saying?
Almost guaranteed it comes tomorrow.
Exactly. They cannot drop a decision in July. There's no way.
Well, tomorrow's July. Monday,
God.
July 1st.
Yeah, that's right. It's June 30th. That's ridiculous that they're taking this long.
I think the last time they took this long was COVID because all the hearings got pushed back.
Exactly.
They usually never take this long. And I think our tinfoil hat conspiracy, which I think is just kind of true, the Supreme Court waited this long to drop the Trump immunity case because they didn't want it to overshadow news coverage of the debate, which they probably predicted would be bad for Biden.
I think also same thing with the Chevron case. They waited so that they wouldn't talk about it on the debate stage, and they also waited so that the debate aftermath would overshadow the historic nature of overturning. Chevron is a case that has been cited in 18,000 federal.
There's that many?
Yeah.
18. I'm
pretty sure it's 18,000 federal fucking decisions.
Guys, look, if you think that's bad, it's going to get much worse.
That's what I'm saying.
It's really bad.
Oh my God.
Don't be doomer, of course, lock in, as I said, but holy moly, it's unbelievably bad.
Yeah, look at it. Over time, Chevron has been cited in over 18,000 federal court decisions. This is super precedent, and it's been invoked to uphold at least hundreds of agency actions.
That's the most super precedent thing ever, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. It is the backbone of damn near any decision pertaining to the administrative agency's powers. Chevron is how government over the last 40 years has run.
And Chevron was what, 1984? 84, yeah. So exactly 40 years ago.
So George Orwell communism, that's why we had to get rid of it.
Well, and the crux of the conservative project in America is make America great again. Seemed like a pretty great back then. When that decision was made.
Right? When we consider it like that, and that seems pretty good.
That was the Reagan administration, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little bit.
Right. But okay.
Before we talk about Chevron, there were some other cases that dropped. The Supreme Court outlawed homelessness. I can't remember what exact case it was. I was mostly focused on Chevron this week. You know what I mean?
It was there was a city in Oregon.
It was Park something versus a guy's name.
Yeah, no, it was from it came from a city in Oregon that made a law that basically said you could get arrested for sleeping.
Yes.
In public spaces, outside as a homeless person.
And kind of the issue at hand in front of the Supreme Court was, can you criminalize homelessness? Is it cruel and unusual punishment to criminalize the act of sleeping outside because you're homeless when there is not an available shelter in your city? Mm-hmm. So when you have literally zero options, is it illegal or can you be punished for sleeping outside?
Yeah.
Is that cruel and unusual punishment? I think so. When you literally have nowhere else to go, I think that would be cruel and unusual to say, well, we'll put you in jail instead.
Not to mention that, like, putting them in jail doesn't solve the homelessness crisis.
Exactly.
If anything, you're just crowding the prisons even more, the jails, the county jails even more.
You fine them to all hell. They already can't afford to live anywhere.
Yeah, you think they're choosing to live like that?
That seems very cruel and unusual. Like, and it's absurd. But what is it? Roberts, I think, might have wrote the opinion. He didn't think so. He said that this was not about criminalizing homelessness.
What the fuck is it about then, dog?
He said something along the decision was that something about the 8th Amendment does not stop like a local community's rights to govern issues like this, which it does. The Supreme Court is the law of the Supreme Court. The Constitution is the law of the land.
Yeah, I was about to say, the Constitution supersedes literally everything.
You all love to remind me of that, no matter how silly I think that can be sometimes. The 8th Amendment, that seems like one that really absolutely should be the law of the land, and we refer to that often.
That's an important one. It was in the Bill of Rights.
Exactly. One of the first 10. They didn't have to amend the Constitution. They thought of that one off rip. That's how important that one was.
Thomas Jefferson's like, this, it's getting in here.
They cooked with that one.
Right alongside freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and not quartering soldiers. Like, these are the most important ones at the beginning.
But now, the Supreme Court of the United States is saying that no, local communities can actively outlaw the idea of sleeping.
Yeah.
If it's in a public space when you have nowhere else to go, that's actually fine. And they said that it was not criminalizing homelessness, which I find very interesting because what else is it criminalizing?
Yeah.
It's along the same lines as their gerrymandering decision, where it came down to a couple weeks ago, the Louisiana case, the Louisiana electoral map, disenfranchised black voters.
Yeah.
They gerrymandered along racial lines. It's pretty unambiguous. But the Supreme Court said, how do you know it was along racial lines? They took Democrats out of that district.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, how do you think they figured they were
Look
Democrats?
at him. They're a Democrat.
You know what I mean?
Look, he looks like a Democrat.
He looks like a Democrat.
Pay no attention that he's a black man. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, this one, like, he's a guy sleeping outside. How do you know that he's homeless? How do you know he doesn't have anywhere else to go, even though he's sleeping outside? And like,
it's just like, what does... if that's not criminalizing homelessness, like you're saying you can get arrested or fined whatever for being homeless. That's criminalization of homelessness.
Incredibly technical and obtuse, like, definition of what is and is not to criminalize homelessness. Like, it's absurd, and I love this coming from the constitutional originalists.
Yeah, coming from John Roberts, who is supposed to be like the moderate of the court.
I think it's Roberts. I'm not sure if Roberts wrote the majority opinion, but either way, like, any of them.
It was 6-3 regardless. He was on their side.
Oh my god! Yeah. And isn't that funny? Yeah. Isn't that funny? I think every decision that came out this week was 6-3. Funny how that works. The other decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the January 6th rioters could not be charged with obstruction, that they were overcharged in doing so. Funnily enough, this gets some of Trump's charges taken away. He was charged with obstruction in some cases, but that's a thing. That was an interesting 6-3 because Ketanji Brown Jackson flipped to the conservative side and Amy Coney Barrett went to the liberal side. Wicked.
Well, and I think the reason for that is the law in contention was made following Enron, which was an entire debacle, I think, in 2007, which had to do with a corporation destroying documents so that they could interrupt a congressional proceeding investigating them.
Interesting.
And so a law was made basically saying you can't do that. And so the question in this case was, does what the January 6th protesters did count as obstructing Congress, even though they weren't specifically destroying documents? Yeah. The law itself does not say you have to be destroying documents themselves to be obstructing Congress, merely that you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so the law itself literally says, hey, you cannot obstruct an official proceeding of Congress. But the Supreme Court justices in the majority, the conservatives plus Ketanji Brown Jackson, said that, well, the context they wrote it in said it was all about Enron and documents. They didn't do that.
Now context is important.
And that's why Ketanji Brown Jackson joined their side, because he was like, context does matter when you're writing a law.
I can be okay with that from her. I can understand that from her. That is a consistent position, but it's funny that context matters when you're writing a law when it comes to obstruction for January 6th rioters.
Whenever it suits you.
But it does not matter when it comes to a machine gun.
Yep, of course not.
That's incredibly interesting. What a time to be alive. And I guess that
textual-ish.
Well,
whenever it suits them, yeah.
This court has been so blatant in just awful things. Has there ever been a court in modern American history that has overturned so much super precedent or just precedent in general?
And it's funny because we had the Idaho case and the Mifepristone case, where the Supreme Court majority is siding on the correct quote unquote decision, because in the Mifepristone case, they basically
was dismissed on standing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it was dismissed on standing, so it didn't really do anything bad, but it could have been bad, might still be
and it
bad.
Killed,
The Idaho case was also very narrowly decided, basically saying like, well, maybe the court shouldn't deal with something like this at this moment, opening the door for future cases. Yet when both of those decisions came out, lowly Clarence Thomas was on the other side of them, saying, well, hey guys, maybe we should
it's like
destroy
he's just
everything.
Giving it away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the Supreme Court is cursed, which again is the reason Joe Biden should be running against it.
Oh, absolutely.
Forcefully, if he can manage that.
I am galvanized to vote against the Supreme Court. I am not galvanized to vote for Biden. A 7-2 court would genuinely be devastating.
Yeah.
That's a situation where I don't want to have kids.
Supreme Court is like at the top of my mind when I'm voting for Democrats.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because it's so fundamentally important, as we'll get into. So,
unfortunately,
the Supreme Court did a thing, surprise, surprise, this week. They overturned the Chevron defense, and historically, the Chevron deference, and historically, this is very funny that conservatives are touting this as some massive win, because in 1984, this was a win for the Reagan administration.
Yes, yeah.
The Reagan administration was pleased because the Chevron deference allowed Reagan's EPA to kind of interpret the Clean Air Act in a way that would ease regulations on polluting businesses.
Yeah, yeah.
Big win for them now. Funny how that's changed. You know what I mean? But with that, I don't really care about the Looper Bright and the relentless ruling in of itself, because the explicit issues at hand were about fisheries and about whether or not boats were responsible for paying federal.
Is that the latest ruling?
That's the latest ruling. Okay. Looper Bright versus somebody, and Relentless versus the Department of Commerce.
Oh, they were just merged into one?
I think so. Were the two rulings that are responsible for overturning Chevron. I don't think the individual facts of those cases matter, because what matters is overturning Chevron. You know what I mean? The facts of those cases were the Supreme Court ruling, federal agencies can't do that. Oh, and also, by the way, they never should have been able to do that, and they can't do it in the future.
So it's just like Dobbs. It's just like Dobbs.
It's exactly
Roe
like
was
Dobbs.
wrongly decided. Oh, by the way, maybe we should reconsider Brown v. Board.
100%. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know what I mean? So I think the facts of those cases don't matter, and they don't really matter for understanding where we are going to go in the future. So I do want to talk about the original 1984 ruling, and that was Chevron versus Natural Resource Defense Council, so that we can understand exactly what's at stake and how it's going to be handled going forward. So the facts of the 1984 case are as follows. States were lagging behind when it came to adopting new air quality regulations imposed by the EPA before Reagan. As a result, the Clean Air Act was amended in 1977 to impose new requirements on states that did not meet the EPA standards. One such requirement was that permit programs needed to be set up to regulate, quote, new or modified major stationary sources of pollution, end quote. That was the statutory language that was used and amended into the Clean Air Act, and that is fundamentally the statutory language that underscores why the Chevron deference was put into place in the first place, right? Reagan's EPA took that and said there was some ambiguity with the term, quote, stationary sources of pollution, and I agree. What is that? It was not very well defined. They used this ambiguity in 1981 to tell states they could define a production plant as a whole as a, quote, stationary source. And from Justia U.S. Supreme Court Center, this would allow, quote, an existing plant with several pollution-emitting devices to install or modify one piece of equipment without meeting the permit conditions if the alteration does not increase the total emissions from the plant. This became known as the bubble concept, since the plant is now treated as this one unit, and that is the bubble that encapsulates many different minor polluting-causing devices. But as a whole, as long as emissions aren't changed, the Clean Air Act hasn't been violated. Although this was a win for the Reagan administration, and I'm ontologically opposed, I have to agree that is a reasonable interpretation of the statutory language. You know what I mean? Like, that's good. I agree with Chevron.
And to me, it's more of an issue of regulatory capture in that case than it is the fact that administrations or agencies have discretion in how they interpret a law that was passed by Congress.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because regulatory capture is an issue, but that's not an issue of like the philosophical underpinnings of administrative states. It's an issue of money and politics.
Yeah.
Because courts can also be captured by money, and they are. See Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. And so the question before the court in this case is, quote, what was whether the EPA's allowance of the bubble concept is based on a reasonable construction of the statutory term stationary source. And from this, the major issue at hand became whether a court may adopt a static judicial definition of a statutory term when it has determined that Congress itself has not commanded that definition. Yeah. If Congress has not explicitly defined something, can a court step in and substitute their definition for in agencies?
Yes.
That's what this is. And famously, the court held that the judiciary cannot. Mm-hmm. They cannot substitute their definition over an expert's, because that's what these agencies are. These agencies are experts. They are given that power by Congress to be experts and do these things to regulate.
Yeah.
This is merely an extension of that.
And that can lead to bad outcomes, but that's often not because of, again, the general philosophy behind administrative states, but rather because the people in the positions might have been captured by corporate interests, which they were in the case of Reagan's EPA.
Absolutely. Sometimes I will disagree with an administration's interpretation of something to put in a rule that I don't like. That's fine. I'm not saying they don't have the power to do that, though.
Yeah.
I'm not being a bedwetter about it. I'm not being a bedwetter about it, you know what I mean?
I can think that they're wrong. I think agencies are not an infallible reference, right? They can be wrong sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a court would be right.
Precisely.
What are we doing?
I think that experts, despite being experts, again, can be captured, can be motivated by political purposes for reasons we'll get into later.
Especially with a Republican president like Ronald Reagan.
Especially with how administrations work that conservatives seem to forget, and they can do bad things, and that's fine. But I'm not going to say that they shouldn't have that power, because that power is good, and it's the underpinning of government as we know it today.
Yeah.
And insane. And so the court arrived at that conclusion, that an agency should be able to do this. They have the power to do this. We are enshrining this. This was considered a minor decision back then, but because it's been cited over 18,000 times, it's super precedent and the underpinning of government.
Well, yeah, and it was considered a minor decision because that's how it worked before the case, right? Because people are often, I've seen a lot of people on the timeline saying like, oh, you think it's going to be so bad overturning Chevron? Well, how did it work before? It worked the same, but the court enshrined it into constitutional law.
Yeah, what is it? Their jurisprudence or something like that? The court made it so that this is actually what's going on. Yeah. This is what is derived from the Constitution and thus the law of the land.
Yeah, the bureaucracy functioned this way before. They were just, it was challenged legally, so they enshrined it into constitutional theory.
Exactly. And when you look at the facts of the case, despite it being the Reagan administration, believe me, sounds incredibly reasonable, and I agree. But not so much anymore. And now the power to interpret ambiguity lies with the courts rather than experts. And this is where we start to get into narratives and implications, right?
Yep.
Because what is an ambiguous statutory statement or ambiguity within legislation, as we see with this very case in 1984, isn't always something that you can predict. Sure, that Congress could have defined what is a stationary major pollutant or something, but they didn't. Maybe they didn't think to. Maybe they didn't need to. Either way, that created room for an interpretation to be made.
Or they wanted the experts to interpret it themselves.
And that's very important, because that's how government works now. Whether or not that's how it worked before Chevron became law of the land, that's how it worked after. And ever since then, Congress has created laws. They have crafted them in such a way so that agencies can take care of it. And that's been pretty good.
Because it's the executive branch. They execute on the law.
Exactly.
They get their directives from the president and from Congress, most importantly, and then they do it.
And it's even, because while we're getting into narratives, conservatives argue that the executive branch is legislating with this. I would argue they are enforcing. The executive branch is there to enforce. The legislative branch makes laws, and the judiciary fucking judges and does bad things. At least the modern one does.
Yeah.
By interpreting laws to enact regulations, you are enforcing them. You are not creating new laws. You're not creating something out of thin air. You know what I mean? And the prevailing conservative narrative following this decision is that the overturning of Chevron is returning legislative power back to Congress where it should be. And this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the issue is.
Yes.
It absolutely is. This argument is that unelected bureaucrats, that's terms that they use, not terms that I use because I know how government works. I paid attention in civics. Is that unelected bureaucrats within the executive branch are circumventing Congress's legislative power when they enact new regulations by using the power that Chevron granted them. Conservatives say this is an obfuscation of the power of Congress, but it is fundamentally not.
Oh my God.
It's not. The argument against Chevron relies on this asinine and impractical idea that Congress needs to be explicit in dealing with every nitty-gritty issue that arises from the process of regulation. Regulation is so immensely complicated. You know, if you work in any industry. So some of the regulations I deal with at work, I don't necessarily like, but I understand them.
Or just workplace policies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
they're always it's an issue of human language. You can't get around ambiguity.
Precisely. You can never be 100% clear. And you show a person a picture, you show 100 people one picture, they can come away with 100 different meanings. You know what I mean? You can never be so explicit as to remove just any way to interpret it differently.
I took a public administration course one time, and we spent like weeks talking about the idea of administrative or of legislative ambiguity.
Yeah,
because it is literally one of the foremost issues that bureaucrats deal with. Is like Congress wrote a law or whatever legislative body wrote a law, and it's not 100% clear how it's supposed to be interpreted by me, the person administering the law.
By me, the expert, I'm not clear.
Like this is like a modern, not even modern. This is like a deep issue of government that has existed for all of time.
Yeah.
And you gotta let the bureaucrats do their thing because they're the experts in the way that we design society today.
Exactly. And it's been all right so far.
Yeah.
I would argue.
I have to note that like the Chevron decision took nothing away from Congress.
No.
There's nothing in the Chevron decision that said Congress cannot be super precise in the way that they designed the law. All it said was that agencies, the administrative state, can interpret the law where it is ambiguous. This is a fundamental practice that has to be available to the administrative state. Otherwise, they can't do anything. Congress could always be super specific. Supreme Court never said Congress can no longer be specific.
Absolutely. And in the primary holding, as summarized by supreme.justia.com, a government agency must conform to any clear legislative statements when interpreting and applying a law, but courts will give the agency deference in ambiguous situations as long as its interpretation is reasonable. And when they consider what Congress has defined as clear within the law, they also consider a legislative history of how Congress has defined things. And if it still remains ambiguous, that's the bureaucrat's job to decide.
It pisses me off when I see people say like, oh, well, all the Supreme Court did was return the power to Congress, which is returning it to the people. It's like Congress always had the power to legislate.
Exactly.
This isn't the Supreme Court saying Congress gets to make the laws. It's Congress. They can do whatever they want.
They are relying on this notion that Congress enacts a law, maybe it's vague, an agency interprets that law, and then it ends there. That's it. That's like the end all be all. Congress can always step in and say, no, I don't like how you interpret that. I'm actually gonna say no.
Yeah.
And that will become law, and that's fine. That's how our system works, and I think it's good that it works that way.
Yeah.
There are checks within that system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Congress can always step in through oversight committees or whatever else, making new laws and say like, no, the agency's out of line. This is not what we meant. In fact, that's how the system's supposed to work.
It's been pretty good.
Congress is supposed to make laws, have them applied. If it doesn't work, they change them.
And again, this is a trend from this court, specifically this term, of adopting an overly technical and obtuse reading of constitutional law to just do evil things.
Yeah.
To just do evil and bad things. And even if we lived in a world where Congress could not only get things done, because that's far away from where we are right now, but they had the bandwidth to take on the nitty-gritty issues of anything that arises within regulation, I still would not want them to be the sole body responsible for defining these things.
Right.
I want that to be the experts, even in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Because a perfect world involves Chevron. And that leads me back to what we were talking about Chevron a little bit earlier, is that because this is super precedent, because this is so foundational to not only the administrative state, but government as a whole, Congress uses this when they enact laws. Again, Congress will intentionally write laws such that the EPA can do regulations regarding this, and then the EPA will say, okay, we can do X, X, and X.
Yeah, because again, we've been saying it for like months at this point. You don't want like your fucking Alyssa Slotkin deciding what soil quality needs to be like,
No.
or what drugs need to do to get approved through the FDA or whatever else, right?
Yeah,
like you don't want that.
You do not want Tommy Tuberville, a fucking football coach, deciding whether or not this specific gummy is a supplement or a drug, because he does not know that information. I don't even want him to decide that should he be briefed by experts. I don't want someone who does not know what they're talking about to have sort of like the final decision on this. I want an expert to do it. I want an expert there, whether it's a Republican expert or a Democrat expert. And that leads me to another crucial thing that people forget about when they talk about Chevron, and that conservatives, leave out when they criticize Chevron. Contrary to their narrative, the bureaucrats that run these federal agencies are not unaccountable to the American public. While yes, they are, quote, unelected, they are still beholden to the political process. They are not separate from it. The president appoints the people who head agencies, who run that agenda, and then they are tasked with carrying out aspects of the president's agenda.
Yeah.
It is an entirely political process.
I would say, I would make a very strong argument that the Supreme Court is far more disconnected from the political process. I was going to make that argument later.
The Supreme Court and all federal judges have lifetime terms. A bureaucrat, the head of the EPA is there for 4, maybe 8 years, and if there's a party shift, they're fucking kicked out of their job. And the entire suite of regulations that they've done has the opportunity to be changed. Because once a regulation of the EPA has been enacted, it's not like it's golden. It's not like it's there forever. It's not like it's super precedent.
Yeah. Well, and even if it is.
Exactly.
that shit doesn't mean anything.
EPA can come in and reinterpret these things to issue new rules.
Right.
It is incredibly flexible. I would argue it is more flexible than genuine legislation that Congress passes.
Yeah.
And that's how it's supposed to be, because when you're dealing with small issues, you want to be able to attack them quicker.
Yeah, and I want to make the point that I think in this decision, it was Marbury v. Madison that was brought up as like a reason for why this case should be overturned, basically saying like courts have the power of judicial review. I also want to note that Marbury v. Madison was the original power grab from the Supreme Court. That's where they invented this power they had based off what the Constitution said in 1802, I think. Similarly, this is also a massive power grab.
This is probably the second largest power grab in court history.
Not only is the Supreme Court and grabbing power for courts generally, but it is massively shifting the tides from the regulatory apparatus in this country to corporate power.
Yes.
Because every single corporation with deep pockets now will challenge the regulations that are imposed on them, hoping that the Supreme Court or whatever court they get up to will say, well, actually, no, the experts are wrong here and you can do whatever you want. Every single corporation will try to do this. It's going to tie up the court system and it's going to threaten the government, because litigating these lawsuits is not free.
Exactly. And just in case I have not been clear in what exactly the Supreme Court did by overturning Chevron, they have said administrations, executive agencies can no longer interpret ambiguous statutes. They aren't saying that Congress is responsible solely for getting in the nitty-gritty weeds of it all. They can still leave things ambiguous. But instead of the experts being responsible for that interpretation, it is now a judge.
Yeah.
It is now a judge.
They got rid of administrative deference, yeah.
Exactly. So now a judge is responsible for determining what Congress means when they say something ambiguous. Yeah. So when Congress goes and defines a supplement versus a drug, and maybe there's some ambiguity in there because, they aren't fucking experts in what is that and what those things are, a fucking judge who's also not an expert can say, oh, well, I think that fucking Eli Lilly should actually be able to sell cocaine to children.
Yeah, no, or some drug companies can be like, no, this actually is safe. I don't care what the FDA says. They sue. 2 years later, it gets up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says, yeah, no, they can do it.
And you don't even need to get up to the Supreme Court with this.
Yeah, you don't.
Federal judges like Matthew Kacsmaryk, the guy who said he knew more than the FDA that tried to overturn mifepristone that gave us that ruling, he could go and do some wicked shit with this. Like this is bad, and it's also not to understate the absolute litany of cases that are going to. I wouldn't be surprised if on Monday hundreds of cases were filed with local courts to try and get regulations overturned. Yeah. I think in the majority opinion penned by Alito, maybe, I don't exactly remember who penned the majority opinion, but they mentioned that previous cases decided by Chevron are okay, they're safe, but going forward, nothing is.
Well, but I don't even believe that previous cases
I don't
are
believe
safe.
that either. They'll find some other
what do you
statute.
mean?
They'll be like, oh, this statute is ambiguous in a way that allows me to actually overturn you, Samuel Alito.
Because like if the 18,000 cases that reference Chevron were using a decision that was initially wrongly decided, how can it be that they still stand judicially? It doesn't really. I mean, I shouldn't expect consistency out of the conservatives. Like we don't get consistency out of these guys, but I don't see how any of those cases are safe, and it certainly doesn't seem like new regulations are going to be safe in any way.
Absolutely not.
And this like legitimately is a threat to the Democrats' ability to do anything for the American people.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter. I guess the only way that they could get past this is with Congress being hyper-specific. But lacking that, and we know how Congress is, especially with the breakdown of the House of Representatives and gerrymandering and stuff, if they can't get that, a Democratic president functionally can't do anything.
Yes.
Like, and that is a existential threat to a party who thinks government can be used for good and is a boon for the Republican Party, whose goal is to completely destroy the government.
And it, like you want to talk about unelected bureaucrats?
Yeah.
Again, these bureaucrats serve for maybe 8-year terms, maybe a little bit longer if we get 2 Democrats in a row.
Yeah, and they've been in the field for a long time.
And they are experts in their field. They've dedicated their lives to these fields.
Yeah.
Versus a judge who was appointed also by a political process, something that they like to pretend they're not. Judges appointed via political process, they're appointed for life. And no matter what, are not accountable in any way, shape, or form to the American people.
And there's no chance that Congress enshrines Chevron right now.
No.
Like, it's because this is just it's
a conservative win.
It's a conservative win. There's no reason that they would do this.
Mike Johnson already came out and talked about how much of a win that it was, how much of a win it was, and we're clawing back government overreach.
Yeah.
You know, these administrative states, they've really spread their tentacles into every aspect of daily life. We're gonna let judges do that instead.
Yeah, like, and all this does is ensure that, like, companies can poison your water or poison your food or sell you defective products that are going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Because if they can skirt regulation or get regulations off of their back to save some money, they're going to do it. Of course they're going to do it.
And it's like some of these settled cases that were settled by Chevron because of the Chevron deference are pretty nitty gritty and in the weeds. They're cases I do not want a judge having any say.
Yeah, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
What goes on here. And I'll read some of these cases off to you from Vox.com. They listed a couple that are pretty representative of what we have going on. Some questions that have been asked, quote, how much nitrogen may be discharged by a wastewater treatment plant in Taunton, Massachusetts? Is there effective competition between cable TV providers and streaming video providers in Kauai, Hawaii? Does the process of mixing and bagging sand constitute milling, which is regulated under the Mine Safety and Health Act, or manufacturing, which is regulated under the Occupational Safety and Health Act? Which electrical facilities are used in local distribution or only for transmission of electric energy in interstate commerce, and therefore exempt from certain federal regulations? Does a service that streams live programming over the internet qualify as a cable system under the Copyright Act?
Yeah.
Who the fuck do you want answering those questions?
Not Sam Alito.
Do you want Matthew Kaczmarek figuring it out, or do you want whoever the fuck, the nameless guy that is a staffer high up at the copyright agency who's dedicated his life to copyright law?
Yeah, and again, people will argue like, oh, well, these bureaucrats are captured by whatever moneyed interests they're getting paid by or, you know, bribed by whatever. And that can be true, but also justices can also be bribed in the same way. And you have the additional fact that judges are not experts at all in any of these fields.
And it's like, I feel like I can't help but feel, again, we're narrative building. Huge theme of just this podcast in general. Conservatives have got away with telling people that it's unelected bureaucrats that are doing these things. They are unelected, but they are not absent from the political process.
Yeah.
They are absolutely beholden to the American
Most
people.
government officials are unelected.
Exactly.
Like the vast majority.
Oh my gosh, man. It's
including Supreme Court justices.
Such a frustrating issue.
Including most judges throughout the country. They're not elected most of the time.
This has to be one of the most transformative courts in American history. The most transformative in modern American history. Like it's genuinely insane. Man.
Yeah. This court and before Ketanji Brown Jackson was on it. It's just genuinely destructive.
Driving me fucking crazy. Driving me fucking crazy. And
what a stretch from like Citizens United to now, man. Exactly. What a stretch.
And it's all the DNC's fault.
Yes.
They don't run Hillary in 2016. They run damn near anybody else.
Yeah.
We're chilling. Ruth Bader Ginsburg steps down.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg thought she would live forever. And I saw some, I don't know if this is true, but I saw some commentary that she wanted her replacement to be made by a woman president. That's why she waited, because she was so sure that Hillary Clinton was going to win.
Oh my God. We've reached peak liberal.
Everyone wants to be woke, and it just ends up destroying American democracy. Maybe wokeness has gone too far.
Man, and it's like, obviously it doesn't lie squarely on her. Then we'd only have a 5-4 court.
Sure, yeah.
But still, Roberts likes to flip every once in a while. Mm-hmm. We would have got some good decisions.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had Dobbs, right? I think it was 5-4,
that was
wasn't it?
5-4, yeah. We wouldn't have had Dobbs.
Maybe. That wouldn't, I can't remember if that was 6-3 or 5-4. But either way. Like it would make a difference in some cases.
Man, what a fucking world we live in.
Yeah,
and I'm genuinely interested to see the administrative state collapse before my eyes.
Mm-hmm. They literally won't be able to do anything after some of these lawsuits go through about whatever regulations GM doesn't like.
And it's also like this is massive judicial power grab, but it's not a power grab that they want. Like, this is not a power grab that federal courts want. They're going to be inundated, absolutely inundated with cases that they have no idea how to rule on because they are explicitly ambiguous. They have no statutory history. There is no legislative history underpinning these questions. These are questions you do not know how to answer.
Yeah, what the fuck does like some random federal judge know about milling and sandbags?
Exactly.
Like, well, you don't know anything about that.
Like, oh my God.
Like, you got to pour over the fact of every minute case that a company didn't like a regulation for.
Exactly.
It's going to be awful.
You know what? Maybe we're creating jobs.
Yeah,
maybe
we're gonna need like 1 million more lawyers.
This is a job creator. Honestly, I like to look at silver linings.
And like some people have made the argument that this will inadvertently hurt a potential Trump presidency next time around because he won't be able to use his bureaucratic state to impose all the Project 2025 stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there's some legitimacy to that, but I will note that based on our Supreme Court and based on a lot of the federal appointments that Trump got, you know these rules are only going to apply when it's like a good thing that's happening.
Exactly.
Like if Trump wants to do a bad thing, a court's going to let it fly. Or it's going to get appealed all the way up to SCOTUS, and SCOTUS will have his back because it'll be 7-2 by that point.
Especially when it comes to what is a reasonable interpretation or not. Like that's already kind of ambiguous in itself, you know what I mean? But like it's just... It's interesting. And also to the idea that this will also hurt Republican administrations. They want this.
Yeah.
Republicans fundamentally run on the idea that government is bad. They run for office.
Yeah.
In the idea that their office is awful and evil and immoral.
See Jim Jordan passing no legislation. Exactly. And then Ben Shapiro saying, well, that's good. Like Democrats are the only serious party for what that's worth in this country. Like Republicans, their goal is to
obstruct,
handicap government.
Yeah,
like it's to make it so they can't do anything.
They do not want to be able to regulate. They think the idea of regulation is already some immoral step, some misstep. It's big government overreach.
Yeah.
And now businesses will genuinely be able to do whatever they want in some instances, like genuinely transformative ruling.
And it's up to Congress to do something, and they're not going to do it. But again, as I said at the top of this, if anything can save us from Trump, it's how awful the Supreme Court is.
It is, and maybe that's a saving grace.
Yeah, and they're about to rule on if Trump has immunity for literally anything he did as president.
Yeah,
and if they view on the side of Trump, if they rule on the side of Trump, Biden could do something crazy. The Supreme Court is a threat to American democracy. Biden could, but he's not going to do that because it's Joe Biden.
I could do something crazy.
Maybe I don't know, Department of Homeland Security or something can pop off in Biden's wake.
Man, yeah. That would be wicked ruling. But they put in the majority opinion just Trump though.
This specific circumstance.
Just Trump. Actually, this is this is a one-time ruling.
Yeah,
you only get one. They wrote in the Constitution, the framers did in invisible ink. You only get one, and he used the one.
Even more reason that we need is somebody that can orate on the Democratic side so they can pin everything on the Supreme Court. And nobody likes the Supreme Court at this point.
And I don't understand why that hasn't been capitalized more.
Because Joe Biden and the Democrats and the Clintonite liberals that run the Democratic Party are convinced that we still have to respect these institutions that have fundamentally betrayed their purpose.
And you'd win over so many people if you just I don't know. Are the Supreme Court, other than Dobbs, Are the Supreme Court decisions even in the minds of like voters? I don't think that Chevron is going to be one, although it's historic, although literally everyone is talking about it. It's not going to be one of those decisions like Dobbs that galvanizes people to the vote. That's just decisions for people like me to freak out about.
Exactly. Genuinely transformative, but nobody's going to,
genuinely transformative. It will make people's lives worse. Admit OSHA is an administrative state. The FDA is an administrative state. I think the NLRB, maybe.
Yeah, it's part of the bureaucracy. It's an executive. Yeah,
that's an executive agency right there. This will affect.
Actually, I do wonder if they're going to call into question like all of the decisions the NLRB has made, because that regulates literally every company.
Exactly. Like this could genuinely affect literally every aspect of your life, from your work to your health to the fucking food you eat to. Literally anything is subject to effect. There are like 100,000 regulations.
Yeah, it's gonna be really bad. I think the Dobbs decision is definitely the biggest one for like the public. Also, like everything last year with affirmative action, with the gay wedding website case, student loans, like Supreme Court has gone back to back to back years, just terrible decisions. This year, I don't think will be as big for voters because a lot of it's nitty gritty and kind of confusing, like Chevron.
I don't think regular voters, unfortunately, really care about homelessness. I definitely
they're kind of evil. A lot of people just don't like seeing homeless people.
Exactly. I don't think that regular voters care about what. I think that regular voters are galvanized against the administrative state because they don't know what it means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the cultural conservatism is so rampant. So I don't think that does anything. What's the other thing? I don't think the January 6th case has any.
I think a lot of people have negative associations with bureaucracy in general because it has served them poorly in the past, oftentimes because Republicans refuse to fund it.
Exactly. Like, a big part of red tape is the idea that these administrations are understaffed and overworked and can't possibly do things. And like,
even more red tape if they can't interpret the rules that bind them.
He's like,
they can't do anything at that point. That's the ultimate red tape. You're basically jailed.
And then now these agencies are just going to sit there and they're just going to have less and less things to enforce.
It's red handcuffs at that point.
More and more challenges make its way to the court. And that's another thing that's so sinister about a ruling like Chevron versus a ruling like Dobbs. Dobbs, sinister. Don't get me wrong. But what is implicitly sinister about the Chevron deference being overruled is that we're not going to see the effects of this for a couple years.
It's going to take a while.
It is going to take time for all of the regulations that exist right now to be challenged and overturned.
Genuinely unraveling society.
Eventually, you're going to go to work one day and some dude's going to be, I don't know, doing something dangerous on a ladder. And you're going to be like, hey, man, you can't do that. And they're going to say, well, actually, and they're going to pull out the statute from their pocket.
Yeah, well, and it's like, to put it more practically, like imagine your grandfather or something tries to like calling the Social Security Administration because something's gone wrong with his payments, and they're like, sorry, we literally don't know what we can do anymore. Like I don't like we can't interpret our rules. We're actually binded up in litigation, so you're not.
Call Samuel Alito.
Yeah, it's bad, folks.
It really sucks out here.
Yeah,
it's been a bad week.
Get your passports up to date.
Get your passports.
I guess.
Oh my goodness, man. And with that, special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer, Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rodgers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Veryuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Dictator, Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cocker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retromondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grottler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, aka Ghana, Quana Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valenic, KCC, Say Yes to West, August Particular Pickman, Sir Capalot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Zen doing their best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Walls 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Kayla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Classified Jones, Lauren, Uncrasmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, Patrick Simpson, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Dialectic Dreamer, Kevin Kisaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. If you listen this long, you might as well join the Patreon and get some merch. New Hito merch line, new logo, new look.
You must be a big fan. And you can be like me, and you can be at the bar celebrating your girlfriend's birthday on like a Saturday night and sitting there like, nobody here knows that Chevron got overturned.
Y'all hear what happened to the administrative state?
Everyone else is drinking to celebrate the birthday. I'm drinking because I fear for what's going to happen to OSHA.
And in the back, the bar owner is planning how he's going to sue to get these goddamn wholesaler regulations off his back.
The bar owner is planning to sue so that he can do dubious things with alcohol.
He's going to pass all those. He's going to get rid of all those regulations.
It's me and the bar owner. We're the only people that know Chevron's gone, and we're on opposite sides.
Oh, it's bad out here. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great week.